to the CPOs and my office staff and those who work close with me in this continued work to serve the people of Jamaica and to carry out the job that I've been assigned. Thanks to Minister Main, my colleague in the Political Directorate, the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Courtney Williams, who will move to head the Fiscal Commission very soon, one of our finest fiscal economists in the island. The heads of agencies responsible for executing the work of the Ministry of National Security. Always sometimes we tend to forget how many there are because of the focus on our Jamaica Conservative Force. But in addition to the Jamaica Conservative Force, there's the Passport and Immigration Citizenship Agency, who provides a necessary and essential service to this country. More unfortunate news recently, but in addition to serving our citizens, passports, and travel arrangements, they play a critical role in the economy as today they are the first experience of a visit to this country, and the tourism sector is crucial to the continued recovery of Jamaica and development of the economy. I commend their efforts. It can be quite challenging from time to time, as our Minister of Tourism continues to bring them in large numbers, and therefore create sometimes not a problem, not a bad problem, but the crowding can be heavy. But we are working to ensure we can manage. The major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine, Department of Correctional Services, the Farm Licensing Authority, the Private Security Regulation Authority, the Caribbean Regional Drug Law Enforcement Training Center, the Police Civilian Oversight Authority, and of course, the Jamaica Defense Force and the Combined Cadet Corps, for which we have administrative responsibility. To the Chief Technical Directors and management and the wider staff of the Ministry of National Security, who are responsible for policy development and program support, thank you for your continued dedicated service to the people of the country. Madam Speaker, I will commence my presentation, maybe one of the less popular and at the moment a little bit controversial area, this afternoon with a few comments on the government's new compensation structure and its impact on our security forces, which account for nearly 30% of the public sector employees. I begin here because it is critical that our officers will not necessarily get an entirely satisfactory pay, but there will be at least a frame of mind that they feel that the government has made an effort to work with them. And I want to recognize, and aware in the audience, the members of the Police Federation Executive, headed by Chairman Rowan James. So I could not report on national security without speaking to this process, which is providing a more rational, I emphasize my words very carefully, compensation package for the security forces. And I emphasize the word rational. Right? For the first time in our nation's history, we have successfully implemented a transparent and predictable compensation system for public sector workers and by extension our security forces. Even though this has been the first month in the new financial year, and since settlement, there are still little hiccups here and there. In particular, it will provide a much better pension benefit for our hardworking officers, which is a crucial part of what we're seeking to do. And for my friends in the Federation, a better base for future negotiations and human resource development. The present and future generation of officers now have the assurance of a compensation system that supports the delivery of a high-quality public services, promotes equity, and will pay the officers competitively in the medium term. Madam Speaker, while we would want to see the compensation being implemented at a faster rate, we have to act in a fiscally responsive manner. In a fiscally responsible manner. And to ensure the gains we have all sacrificed and achieved are not thrown away. It's the trust of the government to ensure that public services are catered of knowledge-based workers that are effectively trained and competitively compensated. We have to maintain the balance between investment and compensation to ensure economic growth, development, and the retention of our value of our currency. Madam Speaker, radical change will seek to replace legacy, will evoke some level of apprehension among any population. Bear in mind that legacy, even when irrational, has certainty. And that may be the biggest challenge we face in looking at a new compensation scale. Legacy, if even challenging and complicated, has certainty, and therefore there's all the apprehension when we make radical change. This new compensation structure is a simple but radical shift from a complicated legacy. The discussion on behalf of the law enforcement officers was a very involved process that showcased some of the best public sector grievance negotiation and employee relationship at work. This process involved the leadership of the Police Federation, the senior officers of the Ministry of Finance, led by the Deputy Financial Secretary, Mr. Wayne Jones, and head of the Transformation Implementation Unit, chairman of EPOC, and the former president of the PSOJ, Mr. Keith Duncan, and myself as the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. Together, we were able to work and resolve a difficult and knotty problem on time and to the relative satisfaction of all parties. Madam Speaker, the entire process in this particular phase of this negotiation represented democracy at its best. There was the political leadership, the private sector leadership, civil service leadership, and the trade union leadership. Work together to come to a settlement in the interest of our country and demonstrate that working together we can resolve some of the most difficult challenges. I want to commend the Police Federation executive who demonstrated a willingness and a commitment to have a set resolution in a timely manner. It's fair to say, Madam Speaker, without taking the House, Chairman James would work a 14-hour day with us before departing for home with his family at 10 or 12 in the night. The General Secretary, Ms. McBean, whose mother fell ill at a critical moment, kept on working from the telephone from the Falmouth Hospital. That demonstrates our willingness to find a solution. And to all members of the committee, some fine Jamaicans, I want to express my profound gratitude to the Federation Executive Committee. I want to further mention the support of Mr. Keith Duncan, who went on Sunday, where he was with us all the time. All those 14-hour days, he stayed with us. We were able to discuss the issues frankly and openly, including the need to hold the fiscal margin right, and the Federation members accepted and understood again, I know. But we had to find a way to do better for our officers, and we stuck with it. Well, on Sunday, upon realizing that our offices would not be available to accommodate our discussion in a comfortable manner, because central government offices, central air conditioning turned off, he opened his own boardroom and called out his office staff to serve the team. And indeed, it was on that fateful day that we came to a final resolution before we went back to the Ministry of Finance. Madam Speaker, consultation, inclusion, partnership, and equity are key features of the Andrew Holness administration. It's on this basis we can assure the people of Jamaica of our continued success in transformational development. Madam Speaker, I identified security. Before I proceed, and my apology before we say more, to recognize the partners, although you did so for me in the beginning, this government in security work with a widespread partnership, not only in the Caribbean, but internationally. And we have a fantastic team of our friends from the developed world. We call the ABC EU Partnership. And I want to recognize what you did at the beginning with, of course, Her Excellency, Marianne Van Steen, Ambassador of the European Union, one of our longest standing and most committed partner, in fact, been very supportive throughout in our efforts, especially in crime prevention. Mr. Alec Gainey, Acting Mission Director of the United States Agency for International Development, and I'll again refer to the work we're doing in partnership with them. Mr. Wesley Collins, Mr. Christian Da Silva, and Mr. Daniel Shepard of the United Kingdom. I should also mention that as the title of my speech this evening relates to technology, my ACP, Mr. Leonard Brown, and for those who watch James Bond, I call him the JCFQ, gentleman who handles all our technology activity, a fine officer who works hard to ensure we can develop and complete the modernization and digitization of the police force. So, Madam Speaker, this evening I want to proceed to look at what we've been doing and outline the philosophy behind our approach and, of course, where we're going. We identified security as a national priority and developed the Plan Secure Jamaica at a very early stage. Plan Secure Jamaica is an integrated, inclusive, and enduring strategic security program for the country. Madam Speaker, this was not a reactive policy. We didn't get into government and decide one day we need to find a solution, a plan for security. And many would say, find a crime plan. And I will quote from our manifesto, which outlined clearly our early commitment to transforming the security force in the country. This is from our manifesto of 2016, I think. Improving city security is the single most important growth-inducing reform that Jamaica can undertake. I repeat that, Madam Speaker, the single most important growth-inducing reform that Jamaica can undertake. There must be substantial and sustained improvement in security and justice before the people will feel safe to live, work, and invest in Jamaica. We are convinced that this is achievable in the medium term. Progress will require a comprehensive approach, including institutional reform, starting with the police and the justice system, a vigorous and unrelenting drive to eradicate corruption, and bold and decisive action to finally deal with social exclusion. End of quote. But this, Madam Speaker, was written before we in government. That's something we came up and suddenly opted to pick up as a nice sounding verse. We understood the problem, we set out in a program, and we knew that we had overnight fix, as we said, in the medium term. So, Madam Speaker, this was not merely a campaign document. It reflected our deep commitment to a comprehensive security strategy that we continue to implement. It is unfortunate practice for previous administration to talk, administrations, to talk and plan, talk and plan. This government, led by Andrew Horace, we execute, we plan and execute. That's the mantra of the So I want to assure the people of Jamaica that this government is on track with fulfilling our commitment to substantially and sustainable transformational change in security, to a comprehensive approach to institutional reform, and implementing bold, decisive action to eradicate social exclusion. We are on track with building a stronger and more efficient security team to ensure the outcomes that all Jamaicans desire, a safer and more prosperous Jamaica. Of course, we had some interruption in terms of investment. COVID-19 hit us for 3 fiscal years. But we are persistent, Madam Speaker, and we are proceeding. It is indeed true that for over 25 years, the country had to grapple with one of the highest murder rates in the region. At the same time, it experienced low levels of investment in our national security architecture, extremely low levels. I think the other chart will show a little later how it's run on, probably can be visible on the screen. This is a reminder of the failure of various administration to prioritize this critical issue of crime and security. The graph should reflect this quite clearly. Minor effort was made from 2006-2007 onwards, but the real investment started in the security in 2016-17. It's not visible on the screen, I'm sorry, but I do have a chart which you should be seen shortly. Madam Speaker, it's important that I remind, because when you look at the chart, and I can explain, from 2016-17, we can see capital investment went up, except for a small peak in 2008-2009, and we have kept that level going, and we'll continue to increase it over the years. Madam Speaker, it's important that I remind the country of what has been done and what we intend to do as we continue to implement Plan Secure Jamaica. We are now training, Madam Speaker, 1,260 recruits annually from an expanded training facilities and adding a net of nearly 800 officers annually to the police force. A critical part of whatever change we do or whatever success we hope to achieve is to increase the number of our police officers. We have upgraded the police communication system. Mr. Brown is here, P25 radio network. This was once the most resilient communication network in the entire country. I recall from my early days in public life, it was allowed to deteriorate rapidly and to a level it was almost useless. The stories of officers being beside a robbery and being called and the officer not hearing, and the officer was a mile away trying to run through traffic to get there, was fortunately a thing of the past. We have expanded the network connectivity across police facilities, island-wide to complete the digitization process that we are proceeding on, and I will expand on this further as we proceed. We have expanded the police fleet of fit-for-purpose motor vehicles, which are equipped with the relevant computers, cameras, and a full fleet management system for the first time in the history of the force. A fleet of all right, they serve the purpose. We have established the finest Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine in this region. The forensic pathology autopsy suite will be completed this year. The institute itself is one of the finest. A crucial institute in implementing and executing the criminal justice system. Because we know in this country we have a habit, we have an unfaulted practice that informs the dead culture. Therefore, getting the first person affidavit witnesses can be very challenging. And lawyers are individuals who are known criminals with all of the evidence in place will get off on technical grounds and continue their mayhem. With a quality forensic institute, all this will cease so we can get the required forensic evidence, which is beyond question in our courts and the hands of our lawyers and prosecuting lawyers. This particularly relates to the DNA lab, which is now complete, up and running. We had some partners supporting getting that lab up, but it's now fully equipped. And when our forensic suite is finished, we'll be a perfect and finest modern forensic institute in this region. We have constructed, Madam Speaker, in a drive to improve the working conditions of our police officers. We get 6 brand new police stations. Shady Grove in the hills of St. Catherine. Olympic Gardens in the Western Belt. Buff Bay over in Portland. Port Antonio in Portland. Mount Salem in St. James. And the Great Native will be occupied, ready for occupation by later this year. So they said built by labor. We have extensively renovated 6 others and retrofitted them into professional institutions, namely Franklin Town, Adelphi in St. James, 4 Parts in Clarendon, Denham Town, Bogwalk, it's about complete, and Lionel Town in South Clarendon. 5 stations are currently under construction or major rehabilitation. Frome in Westmoreland, Little London in Westmoreland, Stony Hill, Hills of St. Andrew, Anchovy in St. James, and Lacovia in St. Elizabeth. With the brand new stations to provide our men better working conditions. We have impacted some 133 police facilities across with major refurbishing. And this was not done on the basis of just requests and observation. At the beginning of the administration, we had an engineer review the status of all stations, all 186 police stations and 226 police facilities across the island. We're in the process of ensuring that all of them are brought to the required standards. If we had a little hitch, but there's only 1 grade C facility, and the engineer organized them in a simple chart. Grade 1, needing minor repairs and repaint and so forth, and the sanitary facility fixed up. Grade 2 required some significant change, and grade 3 need to be demolished and replaced. And there's only 1 grade 3 facility we have not yet impacted on because there's a little hiccup in identifying the proper ownership of land. We are now proceeding and we'll have that done. And that's Amity Hall in St. James, my neighbor's constituency, and we're sure we'll get it done. It's really not fit for occupancy, but we need the police station out here. And of course, we have had a fire recently in that year. We have completed final planning phase to start construction of the St. Catherine North and Westmoreland Divisional Headquarters this fiscal year. Both stations may become area headquarters in the medium term as we look at some significant reorganization. But the St. Catherine Station is there. Port Maria is in the state of settlement because the land ownership has been cleared. And take a personal interest in, I want to assure the member, the National Housing Trust has agreed to do the required survey so that the parish council itself can get their fair share of land with the appropriate titles and The member from Western St. Mary will guide the development of the Fort Murray Town Center. But the Ministry of National Security, we're putting there first a brand new divisional headquarters for the police force. In the meantime, we are looking at an alternative venue for the police because the one there, is really not only uncomfortable, it's not appropriate for occupation by working professionals. The process of developing the KMR headquarters is also ongoing. Some delays, but we are proceeding expeditiously with that as we seek to reorganize and reposition our police force to be more effective in the operation. The digitization of the police force is continuing, and I'll expand on that further on. But I could say in here without fear of any contradiction, I think the police force, I know the police force is the most advanced institution in digitization at this point in time. And in the modern world, nothing is more critical. Importantly, Madam Speaker, we have established 10 domestic violence intervention centers across the island. In this own budget, we use our own budget supported by funding from one of our partners, United Nations, in this case, but the government takes the issue of domestic violence and interpersonal violence very seriously, and we intend to sensitize our police officers both in training and at work, and the challenges posed to them, and want to provide the required facilities to ensure they can deal with it. And we are, and through our holistic approach to go to the whole question of crime fighting, we're in dialogue with the relevant agencies that are required outside of the police force. The police is not taking over psychosocial counseling. An excellent team of young officers out there who are working at it, but we want the Ministry of Health to have the required social, psychological, clinical psychologists in place, as well as our agencies that work with domestic violence to work collaboratively to deal with what is an emerging, very, very significant problem in the society. We have expanded Jamaica's CCTV program across Jamaica, and it's working very well. I will say more later. We have digitized, Madam Speaker, the well-known traffic ticketing management system with electronic ticketing capability, but critically, Madam Speaker, this provides a foundation for efficient public order enforcement and a better use of the fixed fine regime that is required in public order. This is some reference to many years back, but we have executed. As I indicated earlier, others plan, we execute our plans. And this is a very crucial, it's a simple matter, but we have learned in executing, it is critical to public order. In addition to that, it is working, getting several agents to work smoothly together. So the crucial item. The law came in somewhat a little bit late, but it was a challenging process to get all the 5 relevant agents to coordinate and synchronize. And we're still having a little delay, but my colleague from the Ministry of Justice assures me that very soon the courts will have, and I know the law will be very pleased to hear, an efficient modern court management system, which is required to ensure that the entire system can work smoothly. I am available and my team is available. We'll assure the country a good court management system is critical to the criminal justice system. And I'm sure my legal friends on either side of the house appreciate and understand that. Yeah, one continuum. And we have seen it working, and we have seen our officers issuing the tickets. And and let me come to it again, it deserves repeating, because when there was disorder on the road, and it still is, not fully settling yet, everybody likes to charge the police officer. I call my officers, I don't think the man is saying it. It ended up that every taxi giving problem was owned by a policeman. Every policeman was taking some out of the car window to prevent prosecuting them. But the breaches, so the road was disordered because the police officers were in discipline. What is emerging without any doubt today? The police officers are issuing 7,000 tickets per week. 7,000 plus with 800 ticket machines. They enjoy doing it. They are proving to others that they are not out there to collect money. They're issuing tickets. Government is getting the money. The courts is getting crowded. We have to find a way to reduce it. But we get all the air required to give Mr. Minister Chuck, his court management system, will be able to help the Island Traffic Authority and all the other areas required. Because the discipline is still high, but the officers are approaching their job with enthusiasm and fairly, and we'll find them all. Eventually, I'm sure it will settle in as the court takes on the side of the job, and individuals will begin to see significant improvement. Well, they're already improvement, but we'll see good order on our roadways. Somebody tell me they can drive down Reddit's Road. I don't Minister somebody not here this morning for the first time for a long time. They can drive the straight line down Reddit's Road. We have achieved, Madam Speaker, I'm very proud of this, ISO 9001 certification for Jamaica Constabulary Force in several stations. We have established a multi-biometric identification system at the Criminal Records Office. And while there may be the occasional hitch, the long lines associated with the Criminal Records Office is no longer a part of our daily life. Madam Speaker, I went there one morning, and I must tell you, I was particularly upset and felt hurt. There was an elderly taximan in there. He was about 65. But he was there because an honest, hard-working Jamaican, and he was going to get his criminal record in order to get back his license. Not a robot, not trying to beat the system. And he told me I had to go there every year and spend 2 hours to 4 hours to get the criminal record at the Criminal Records Office. There was another lady who was a basic infant school teacher, who also had a requirement. She too was a wonderful middle-aged Jamaican lady. And another lady in her 60s too, who was the attendant in the back manager's office. And each year they had to be going down the long line in the sun, waiting 3-4 hours. It was intolerable. And let me thank the team from the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And again, my good friend in the audience, ACP Leonardo Brown, who represents the committee, and they got it fixed in a timely manner. And pretty soon, to get your records, you may not have to go too far. You go to the records to the police station, put your fingerprint in, we do the first screening, and if you're fine, you go. If there's anything to be searched for later, you get it done. But we have resolved that problem at the Criminal Records Office. I know those in Kingston used to see it driving by. The long lines is no longer at the Criminal Records Office on Duke Street. We have established, restructured, and refocused several critical specialized operation formations within the Jamaica Constabulary Force for greater operational efficiency and effectiveness. So we have the Special Ops team.
Madam Speaker, the member's time having been expired, I beg to move that the Speaker's time be extended sufficiently to allow him to conclude his presentation. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Members, a question before the House. Is that sufficient time be given to the Minister to allow him to complete his presentation? Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Dr. Chang.
Well, not 45 minutes, but I take the time to thank my colleagues for their graciousness. We have changed the uniform. We have even changed the uniform of the police, Madam Speaker. You are beginning to see them emerge to make them more relevant and functional. You know, there was a big controversy about police officers wearing body cams. The police were never against body cams. Say it very loud. Of course, an expensive item, and it has to be bought as part of the normal process and be prioritized. But the old uniform could not carry a body cam properly. And when the police officers went out and the camera flipped over and took his face, they said the policeman was being dishonest. It just was not designed to carry a body camera. It's an inherited legacy issue. And those are some of the things that convey the wrong image of the police, and a lot of us buy into it. So the first thing we returned them to the...
Hi, can I help you?
Maybe. I'd like to look at Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, Burberry, Ray-Ban, Purcell, Oakley, Costa, Michael Kors, Coach, and Ralph Lauren.
What colors?
Sunglass Hut. Find every shade of you.
We have established social transformation programs in the challenged communities, Madam Speaker, with a strong monitoring and evaluation component. It is crucial, Madam Speaker, because when there are controversies or arguments around social intervention, the critical element is like any other thing, whether it's a nice, wonderful thing or statistics and issues, we have to ensure that there is monitoring to ensure we get value for money. And the monitoring and evaluation is critical. We have expanded our youth engagement programs, and we have established, of course, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency as a legal institution. We have digitizing the passport immigration and citizenship agency. We have amended the anti-gang legislation the House was complete our program of transformation in the security forces. We are seeing improvements and know that we'll achieve our objective of greater public order and public safety, but we are not complete. I'd like to give a brief overview of the situation we see today, where we have to continue. In analyzing the security environment in Jamaica, I want to highlight a number of critical developments. One of them I'd like to refer to the recent, what is called Latin American Public Opinion Project survey done regularly every 2 years. Crime, we know and understand, remains the most serious and concerning issue for Jamaicans. And rightly so. But in the surveys, we see that crime victimization and a feeling of insecurity have been significantly reduced at the community level. Jamaica is having a crime victimization response of 7%, a very quick and one of the lowest numbers in the 28 countries that have been surveyed. My Minister of Tourism would fully appreciate that when he can speak loud there, right? And only 18% of Jamaicans feel insecure in their communities. It is evident, Madam Speaker, that the increased presence and the visibility of our police officers resulting from our strategic investment and the training we're giving them is beginning to restore some confidence at the community level. On the other hand, while the police continue to impact community safety by reducing certain types of criminal activities, that's what we call crimes of opportunity. The picking up a telephone from somebody called one on Friday, the handbag, the salary on Friday evening. We are seeing organized criminal terrorists changing their operation and impacting the national psyche and the mood of the country, which is the area of great emphasis and concern at this point in time. Madam Speaker, we have observed that the criminal terrorists are operating in organized alliances to hit high-value targets. These kinds of criminal activities tend to generate heightened national concern, such as stealing up ATMs, where we know they have acquired equipment to rapidly extract an ATM machine. They can cut out and remove an ATM machine in less than 10 minutes, right? The targeting of cash in transit and other cash-heavy locations. Inter-gang wars have been reduced significantly, Madam Speaker. We don't hear too much of this gang against that gang. But it relates to what is happening in terms of the organized criminal activity. Impact of the criminal terrorist alliances. What they're forming is alliances between gangs to make this big, high public interest criminal activity. So we find gangs taking the best drivers from one area, or the driver who knows the area well. They find shutters from another area, others organize and spy out on a particular event, give time, etc. We have been able to get that much intelligence. The fact is that while we have built up intelligence and we continue to improve and expand this, the criminals only have succeeded once to create to change the national mood and create some level of fear throughout. Many have been intercepted, but those are not the ones unknown. And as I've often said, fighting crime is like public health. When you fail, it's a major problem. When you succeed, it is taken for granted. The police have built up an extended intelligence team, but they are going further, analyze the activities, and are developing effective strategic deployments in response to them. The police officers are not sitting back and waiting and hoping. They are taking strategic action. We continue to expand and improve our intelligence capabilities to ensure they have all the tools required for strong, effective policing, including legislative tools such as those referred to earlier. I refer to the state of public emergency, Madam Speaker. The state of public emergency, while still controversial, we say without apology, save lives and reduce the activities of the criminal terrorists across the country. The impact is well established. It's one of our best tools in the short term to disrupt gangs and save lives. And indeed, a chart should be displayed. I'm not seeing it. But the murder trend since October, for example, is very well established. It illustrates that the weeks following the declaration of the state of public emergency typically experience significant reduction in murders. In the weeks that record the lowest weekly murders, all fell within the 2-week period of the SOE, where we have been using state of public emergency in a strategic manner in difficult communities in conjunction with other activities. Indeed, Madam Speaker, we say without apology, we need strong policing to deal with the criminal terrorist organization. Our analysis of the police statistics shows that the 25 to 50 are not, and I want this is interesting, Madam Speaker, because I've outlined we'll be taking steps to reduce, to ensure inclusiveness and reduce social inequity. But our analysis shows that the critical age group we're dealing with is 25 to 44. They are the primary perpetrators and the primary victims. In 2022, 63% of murder perpetrators fell into the age group 25 to 44, and 52% of all murder victims. This age group is not one that we try to send back to school. We have to deal with efficient and effective policing. When you look at the bar chart, it's almost a mirror image of the other. 25 to 44 is the group. Our social activism and transformation efforts, we want to go to those that are between 12 and 15 and 17 in particular. The 17 to 25 age group pose a particular problem which we have identified. They are not yet old enough. Most of them don't have children. They have no responsibility. They are fearless. And they are used by the gangs as the shutters. And that's a dangerous group, but we do think some of them can be rescued. It needs strong action. We have to, in fact, catch them without the fire. And they are the ones who usually, when encountered, will begin to fight the police because they are fearless. They have a gun, they feel they're powerful. And the older gang members use them, unfortunately. We find them, we can seek rehabilitative process. But by the time they get to 26, 27, 28, 30, they are seasoned criminals. And the police must be given the tools to ensure they can apprehend them, prosecute them, lock them up, and if necessary, separate them from the rest of their productive lives from the society. This investment in the police force to provide mobility and effective presence is contributing to the significant improvement in public safety at the community level. I showed another brief graph, I don't know if it come up on the screen, and we showed that when we established a quick response team in the South St. Country Division, the crimes of opportunity declined significantly. The bike team, so I refer to crime like people riding by taking away the individual cell phone, house breaking, car stealing, that kind of activity. But we know that the organized gangs were able to organize other activities in there. Madam Speaker, murder is still, which is largely retaliatory, has remained over the 1,000 mark for the last 23 years, with only noticeable declines during and immediately after the states of public emergency, what we may call the lag time. After the big SOE of 2010, 2011, some people speak of boasting of decline after that. These professionals analyzed that period and demonstrated that it took the gang some 30 months to reorganize after that particular state of public emergency. Not alone we are proud of one to boast of. It was a prolonged one and it was very disruptive, yes, but it was a big hit at criminal organization. We see where there was significant fall off following that event. All review of the state of public emergency shows that in a certain time period after the state of public emergency, there was a decline in violence. We have taken note of the decline in the last 6 months. And it includes not only strategic use of SOEs, but it's also true that having added some 1,600 officers to the force in the last 2 years, we had increased number of police officers on the road. We improved their mobility. We're still not yet there because we have just about 11 over under 1,200 operational vehicles. The intention is to take that to 1,500, so they can be operational, fully operational at all times. But at 1,200, we still don't have enough, but it's a significant addition to what was there before. So the strategy of the SOE and the police, because of the increased numbers and with the support of the JDF, launched in the same time, the Special Operation Relentless 2. So for the first quarter of 2023, they recorded the lowest murder rate for the country's history in the last 7 years. Since the start of this year, up to April 23, murders committed in the country have been reduced by 17% compared to 2022. Overall, major crime down by 20%. Madam Speaker, that decline you can see started in October of last year when we started to use sharply in November the strategic use of state of public emergency. Madam Speaker, my officers tell me don't overcommit ourselves. But look at the numbers, the effort of our police officers, their use of the modern tools available in terms of geospatial analysis and continuous recording, improved communication, and the quality training they are receiving. I would say to the country, if we're able to utilize the tool as we did in the early year, continued SOE for maybe 12 months to 24 months, I could take this police force, the men and women of Jamaica Conservative Force, could reduce crime, murder. A crime is being done by at least a third. That would be 400 lives saved. It is of note that in the recent heads of government in the Caribbean region, there seems to be a coalescing of attitudes and understanding of the situation. I hope my friends on that side, who are better friends on the Eastern Caribbean, will begin to see the light. At this juncture, Madam Speaker, we're not seeking to speak of victory. We are making progress, but I want to point out that 50% of investment do not mean 50% success. The relationship between transformation and investment is not a linear one. That is why we will complete the investment in the security forces. Presently, we are seeing seeds of success, but we will continue to pursue our plans and our commitments, and we'll have achieved the objective, and we'll have success with better public safety, good order, and indeed significant reduction in homicides. Madam Speaker, let me focus a little bit on how we're going to go forward. The Jamaica Conservative Force, which is a central law enforcement agency, focuses heavily on three key elements for development and success. Any successful organizational transformation, in fact, requires these features. We focus on people, which is our officers, technology, which is required for modern institutional efficiency, and the processes, which is the legal and regulatory process. The most valuable asset in our crime-fighting tool, Madam Speaker, is the men and women of the Jamaica Conservative Force. We have made significant changes how we recruit, train, develop, and promote the members of the force. We recognize the need to increase the strength of the force, Madam Speaker. To this end, we have expanded our training capacity by renovating and acquiring additional facilities. Camp in St. Elizabeth, Camp Tranquility Bay, Camp Verley in St. Catherine, and of course, refurbished Harmon Barracks. We have expanded our training capacity by renovating and acquiring these additional facilities so we can commit ourselves to adding between 800 and 1,000 officers net. We train 1,200 to 1,400, but we add about 800 to 1,000 on an annualized basis. We have gone 2 years and we're going to continue till we get to our numbers. We have expanded the suite of specialized training programs to ensure that increased capacity, improve supervision, and to introduce transparent merit-based system of promotion. These include, and not all, and not an exhaustive list, but we have an initial officer training program. We have an officer development program. We have an inspector development program. We have the accelerated promotion program. We have the high potential detective training program. We have a training of trainers program so that in expanding the number of officers we have, we just didn't take officers and say, go train police officers. We trained a number of officers. They got promotion and they were then assigned to the various areas so that they could have a uniformity of the quality of training across various training institutions. We have the special operations team, expanded training. And of course, we have the quick response team, which is the bike team that operate in the urban areas. The objective is to have, within 2 years, 15,000 trained, equipped officers operating within a modern police ecosystem. Madam Speaker, over the past 5 years, there's been a sharp reduction in the total attrition we've seen as well. But in fact, the total never was frightening. This represents a positive development we'll accept. And we're mindful that there will be continued attrition as young adults join the police force to improve their CVs. Nothing wrong with that in a country like ours, where many bright young people are not able to go on to university education in traditional ways. But they join the police force, and they in fact take up the opportunity to make themselves more qualified. We are now operating with a 4% attrition rate, which is not unacceptable. In fact, it's quite acceptable. The attrition rate in large police forces ranges from 8 to 12%, average about 10%. So we are still below average, despite of the noise making that we're losing our officers so rapidly. That's not true. Given the size of the police force, 4 to 5% up to 6% is a reasonable attrition rate, and given the nature of policing. With the reorganization of the police force, our investment in the human and physical resources, and a more sensible compensation structure, we expect to maintain this trend, but not only to maintain the trend, but to continue to maintain quality, seasoned, experienced officers who can in fact manage and really ensure the police will get on top of this criminal network that are affecting us. We are training and developing the men and women of the force, a truly powerful force for good. I will spend some time explaining the expanded use of technology in the force for efficiency gains is a powerful force for multiplier. Technology is not only important in increasing efficiency, Madam Speaker, but bear in mind that as the economy grows and increased opportunities arise, there are more officers seeking to go in other areas. And some of our young officers who do well. Recently, we have lost 4 officers to the Bank of Jamaica. When you have joined young and you study early, and they get extra qualification at the level of corporal and so forth, they will move on. I would say currently, given a new position, those that are high up in the ranks are going to resign. We can debate the debate, but given the new level of compensation, the officer level is not particularly attractive for them to resign at this point in time. And I take pride in that fact. This is the government that made an effort to really bring the officers within the 80% margin of private sector work. Madam Speaker, the JCF network, once the finest in Ireland, had to be totally rehabilitated and expanded to ensure island-wide coverage. The construction of 10 additional sites have been earmarked to reduce the dead space spots identified and ensure significantly improved coverage. Work on these 10 sites are continuing and have commenced. We are ensuring that over the entire island, we'll have an effective, modern, resilient police network, which can be useful not only for policing, but in times of crisis and emergencies. Critical, Madam Speaker, we are digitizing the police force. We are the only public entity that is on the path of full digitization. Critical for modern, efficient operation of any institution. There is therefore a need for connectivity across all 220 facilities. 170 of the 220 facilities have been prioritized for almost immediate attention. 170 of the 220 police facilities, including police station. To achieve this target, we're using a number of modalities, Madam Speaker. The JCF microwave network, which you spoke of, the government broadband network, and commercial service providers. Already 50 facilities are connected, and a further 120 will be committed early in this fiscal year. The next 50 remaining facilities, most of which are in very remote areas, are being assessed for the use of satellites and other modalities where feasible connection will be executed during the course of this fiscal year. And the satellite is looking particularly attractive to ensure we can have it across all facilities and at the same time have the other hardware and police microwave as a redundant system. The Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency is also a crucial player in border control and border security. Like the JCF has strengthened its digitization efforts with its new e-passport, and we're moving to a fully digitized process before the end of this fiscal year. Peak operation is crucial to not only serving our citizens, but the visitors' experience in our ports of entry, where travel has become almost critical economic activity today. The digitization of the police records I referred to before, like the big books, that's proceeding under the supervision of a police officer. The station record management system, a trust to cover all stations, has commenced. By the end of this month, we'll have 23 main stations will be fully operational, and before the end of the year, 120 will be onboarded. I must mention this item of digitization was led by the police officers. ACP Leonardo Brown, the audience, lead this team, but the work of a particular inspector at the head office who would deal with the big books was, for anyone to visit, impressive, and this country can be proud of the work of the young officers there. And they went through the process of digitizing the big books, scanning them, checking them that it's going right, and going through the process to ensure that the records will be preserved and there. Led by, I think, Inspector Henderson, my name, sir, right? But his entire team was a group of young Jamaicans, including legally trained Jamaicans, other aspects trained in IT, and they are doing the work efficiently and well and preparing us for the 21st century. Jamaica program now has 860 government cameras installed, the further 328 to be established, and we're building out this monitoring center in Santa Cruz. We are prioritizing Portmore, we are looking at how we can expand this critical activity across the entire island in the crucial areas. It has proven extremely useful. I'm not going into further details here, but it's been extremely useful in apprehending criminals at a quicker rate. I refer to the traffic ticket management system, which again was developed by and large by members of the ministry with the support of the police officers there. And in field, the leading officer in the ministry, director, senior director of the ministry, was a former police officer who came in and had an understanding and appreciation of the challenges faced by the traffic system and led the work. A gentleman by the name of Emil Holgate, somebody again commend as an outstanding public officer. He's working with all the other team members and supporting my friend in the Ministry of Justice and the other areas, Island Traffic Authority and elsewhere, to ensure we can have a fully end-to-end digitized system. I commend the team. I want to refer to our fleet management system, police vehicles presently, the first 1160. We have other old vehicles, but all our acquired vehicles, including boats, motorcycles, are being tracked with a fleet management system. We intend to increase the fleet to 1,500 operational vehicles. The diagram showing on the fleet is a signal of where all vehicles are located. If we had the appropriate order, we could see them moving. But all of those spots represent where vehicles are congregated. And we can monitor all that 1160 vehicles at all times. ACP Brown and his team can tell you where each vehicle is, where they are. But critical to all of that is not just deployment, is that they'll be called in for service when necessary, and therefore provide the appropriate backup to ensure we can maintain them in good order. That is the reality of our fleet management system and reflects the first time I attempt to really put our police officers in a position to really be efficient and to operate an effective fleet of police vehicles. Crucial. I refer to the police record office. People no longer understand the long lines. But critical to all of this, Madam Speaker, is how we bring all this together to ensure we can impact all major crimes, including homicides. We're on track to establish a modern state-of-the-art command and control center, which will connect and integrate all the systems. This will improve the police efficiency and ensure we have quicker response time in all aspects. We'll have a fully functional decision-making room. Asset management is crucial for the police. When I got to the ministry, I found officers had to be, sometimes I go to a station, you had to ask the police if they could get impressed to buy a printer or buy paper. And of course, the officers out there who are in the community would sometimes go to the nearest hardware dealer or supermarket to get a ream of paper or get something printed for the courts. This, of course, was totally unacceptable and not in the best interest of a justice system or a good prosecuting system. So we are putting in place a full enterprise resource planning solution, which includes an asset management system that said this will complement our fleet management systems of vehicles, will be serviced on time, office supplies, and all supplies will be delivered on time. Proper monitoring kept in place, and we know what's happening, and you can hold everyone accountable and run efficiently. The procurement is well advanced. Indicate that we'll be getting body cameras. We have this. We work, we plan, and we execute. We have installed 400 body cams with critical areas. We are procuring another 1,000 this year with critical officers that require them. We see the body camera not as a challenge for the police force, Madam Speaker. It's a means of ensuring the police officers will have the second eye that will relieve a lot of our police officers from false accusations and others. It's a protective mechanism. So we're never afraid of it, as I would like to project. Madam Speaker, the adoption of geospatial technology as part of our technology drive and the development of our C5 within the force, already even operating at the C2 level, allowed executive management and commanders to make more data-driven decisions, identify crime hotspots easily, help to guide the strategic deployment of resources, and make real-time changes when necessary in their deployment of both human resource and physical resource. We are developing a data-driven decision room. We'll be the most modern police force in this region, and we will win the war against the criminal terrorists, I can assure the country. We'll find them, we'll prosecute them, we'll lock them up. If they are attacked by police officers, they are well trained and are capable of protecting themselves. I don't tell them what to do. They know what to do. They won't. I'd pause just to inform that the JCF is inviting members of the public to a people, quality, and technology expo in the national arena on May 11 to 14. They have no material to show what they're doing, how it can be used, and the expo will showcase our commitment to transforming the police to the powerful force for good that they already are, and will even become a more stronger and a better force for good in the country. Madam Speaker, I will turn a little bit to our social activity. As an area, sometimes we get all number of charges shown at us. But again, we looked at all activities surrounding the crime fighting scene. We took measures, decisions to change, to invest in the police force and make significant transformational effort in terms of the physical facility, human resource development, and the supporting services. We made the same assessment of social transformation. Much money was spent over many years in social transformation. It is the study of the university group, not me. I said it, but the CAPRI confirmed that much was spent and there's very little show outcome for a lot of the effort put in there. And I'm not condemning it. Nothing was wrong. You have to try something. But we took a more objective view and we set about a program we think we are convinced will give us the response we require. In addition to that, by our strong monitoring, evaluation, and learning approach, we will make real-time decisions to change where necessary. Our investment in social transformation has been equally robust and comprehensive. The government took the policy position to discontinue the projectized approach, which did not provide sustainable benefits to the people and instead utilize a public health model approach to crime prevention. So all of government, data-driven, and empirically based approach ensures continuity, sustainability, meaningful transformation about the lives of the people and the institutions serving the population of challenge areas. Madam Speaker, there's a crucial event here. If we don't transform the institution that serve the community in the challenge districts, then there is no hope for sustainability. It cannot be otherwise. You cannot intervene in the community, spend some money, do back to school, some treats, and wonderful, nice things, and the school is left in the same condition it was before. And wonderful, nice things, and the school is left in the same condition it was before. We don't do anything with the curriculum. We don't see what's happening with the families, and numerous other things. So we have had much fun spent in many areas. I objected to this at a personal level since I've had experience with this, and eventually we have a policy which we laid out. And the cabinet approved implementation of the city security plan is a key component of Plan Secure Jamaica. The city security plan utilizes a multi-sectoral approach to social investment and social transformation is geared towards three priority outcomes: reduction in crime and violence, safer spaces in human and community development. It's monitored by the City Security Secretariat with a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation framework covering some 70 key indicators, but focused primarily on three areas as well as three strategic activities. The Ministry of National Security is not taking over social service agencies in the country, but I'll focus on a couple of examples which indicate how we are working to develop a concept of proof in small communities that can be expanded and scaled to take in the entire country. The first I'll refer to is a program. We have a program that is funded by the European Union grant, which monitors the activities across a spectrum of intervention. Community mentioned here, I said nearly 70 key indicators, but there were 6 of them that are crucial. I have not alluded them yet, and there are a number of other smaller programs. Among them, there's an interministerial school support program, which targets, Madam Speaker, 34 schools, high school located that are served by 7 communities in which the zones of special operations have been declared. The selected students participate in interventions that seek to improve school attendance, behavior, and literacy as the overall management of this, well as the overall management of the school. Refers to the Ministry of Education to seek psychosocial counseling, motivational mentorship through our case management methodology. And I mentioned, Madam Speaker, the case management approach include risk assessment, development of treatment plans, and broader support access to intervention through case management by all areas of government involved, including violence intervention. This is a comprehensive approach where an individual is trained to work in the community, not part full-time, retained, and we will seek to expand that program. Home visits to see what is home. Pointless treating a child at school and you don't know what's at home. Send the same condition back at home. Reference to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security for support by the social safety net in part and other supporting services by the Ministry of Social Security, which has not a very large, but a very decent social safety net when applied efficiently and well. It's small, but it can be very, very practical in helping to resolve challenges for some families. Reference to the agencies of government to interface because many of our citizens are oftentimes overwhelmed by government bureaucracy. They feel almost fearful to enter the office. And of course, one of our challenges in our society is that many people, even some of our professionals, don't give an ear to a poor person. Just listening to a humble challenge is one of the biggest you can do. So we have our case managers get them to interface with these agencies where they can then be speaking the process of rehabilitation. We engage the vulnerable, then to take them on to become healthy, productive, economically independent individuals. At-risk use strategy initiative at a preliminary stage. It's a big part of this program that we are funding with our EU grants as with our partner, the European Union, but part of our own is matching funds through HEART. Workshops have been convened earlier this year. Take the form of knowledge exchange, learning forum to identify best practices for treating with youth at risk. The discussion will inform the drafting of a national at-risk youth strategy in the short to medium term. The process, Madam Speaker, advances our critical agencies have commenced their own initiative. While this process advances, Madam Speaker, our critical agencies have commenced their initiative in partnership with the City Security Plan, and as particularly the zones of special operations, the Heart Trust NSTA, National Service Corps, have had residential camp for unattached youth in several communities. I said that associated with zones of special operation. There was a graduation of some 191 at-risk youth very recently. They receive remedial literacy, numeracy support, as well as skills training in barbering, basic skills, barbering, allied health, tiling, data entry, and nail care attendance. These are valuable skills to have in Jamaica, Madam Speaker. They're not highly professional at the beginning, but it's for young people, and be very valuable. These youngsters can now go there and earn based on their professional capabilities, and they can earn good money. Some are given enterprise grants. They will become prosperous, healthy, and law-abiding citizens. Madam Speaker, that is Prosperity Live. Through this all-rounded initiative, Madam Speaker, participants benefited from cultural site visits, volunteering experiences, as well as sports day. There are current 30 youths who are being identified again to the Department of Correctional Service for further treatment, for same kind of treatment in this program. We have expanded our Live Good School Invasion, which is a flagship initiative for engaging at-risk youth at the school level toward reducing acceptance of violence with a normal way of dispute resolution. Support promotes pro-social norms, attitudes and sessions, informative sessions delivered by key stakeholders such as the Jamaica Constable Force, Community Safety and Security Branch. Psychosocial support for children is crucial, Madam Speaker. Youth and their family is another of the primary strategies being emphasized in this proof of concept through a two-pronged approach. Our case managers are experienced in working with vulnerable youth and families, particularly in volatile communities. We will be seeking an additional 100 case managers in the course of this year. We have a member of understanding with the Ministry of National Security and the Ministry of Education to identify and engage psychologists for those who are at risk. Currently, we have some 283 students we consider high risk and 283 medium risk students for which we are engaging professional psychological counseling. This will be expanded significantly across the areas we are operating in, and I expect in due course may go national to other agencies. Madam Speaker, all these strategies for meaningful and social transformation are underpinned by empirical data to ensure that interventions are evidence-based and are sustainable. We have made significant gains with this approach to social transformation. We have established the operational governance structure, coordinating and oversight mechanism for the city security business from the City Security Business Group, which comprises the permanent secretaries, the financial secretary, heads of relevant agencies, JCIF, JCF, PIOJ, National Parenting Commission, Horace NTA, and we coordinate the activities, work with the Ministry of Finance to ensure the budget support is there, and in the end, we can reach a wider cross-section in a very meaningful way, but in the process also get the institutions that serve our challenged communities the required resource to effect transformational change in a sustainable manner. We have completed residential centers in consultation with the Ministry of Gender and Affairs. We have built safe spaces, and safe spaces sound simple, Madam Speaker. We are expanding green spaces in community, play areas for children in community areas. We build sidewalks with rails, so kids when they get near to school can walk safely into the schoolroom or cross the road safely. That's the kind of basic activity. We have engaged our parenting, and that's moving ahead a little bit slowly, but we are engaging parents in parenting programs. We have training additional youth at risk. Beyond those in this areas of the zone of special operation, we have some 13,599 at risk youth have received professional certification, and 40,000 are still registered for further treatment, for further skills training. Madam Speaker, this is an all-of-government approach to ensure that all aspects of the child's physical, emotional, environmental, and social needs are addressed by the government, by the programs to reach individuals in difficult and challenging communities. It's a critical component of our crime prevention trust, which targets the individual child, their family, and their community. The government, Madam Speaker, believes in equipping all of the people of these communities with knowledge, so they are better schools and training, with a healthy environment, so we are removing zinc fences, we are renovating community parks, and creating safe leisure spaces. We are building safe sidewalks for our children. We have requested the Ministry of Health to provide the psychological support for the clinics associated with identified communities. They have in fact gotten the required posts through the Ministry of Finance. We are not yet in a position to recruit all of the professionals required because they are just not there, although they have made an attempt to recruit them. We are working on a solution though. We have trained psychiatric aides to do the initial evaluation and get them to the few professionals who are available. Madam Speaker, our objective, we are empowering our most vulnerable citizens by ensuring their sense of certification and other identity and other important resources. The Ministry of National Security organizes social affairs in collaboration with the Social Development Commission and other government agencies, an important outreach effort where we take the services to the communities so they get the birth certificates and other ID that give them, restore their sense of identity and dignity. Madam Speaker, in building a stronger, safer, and more progressive Jamaica, we will not rely on peace brokers. We must equip our people with the skills and the tools that they can all be peacemakers. So entire families and communities must be engaged. That's our mission, Madam Speaker, and we are pursuing it. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, the ministry is implementing the government-to-government program, another partnership. Again, I said what we do is do programs that will be designed to be upscaled in the near future. The program is geared towards improved relationship between the security forces and the communities. A special program, while we do government of Jamaica funding, the USAID has contributed significantly to this, and we are currently implementing in 9 communities and across 22 schools. The key activities include violence audits in the localized area and training of community groups in basic conflict mediation and interruption, trafficking in persons, and most horrendous activity, which we have to continue to fight, fortunately not so extensive yet, but still something we have to fight to prevent it from becoming ingrained in the criminal network in Jamaica. Identification and reporting of child abuse and domestic violence. Support the schools via music, sports, basketball, etc. Support Child Divergent and Restorative Justice Initiative, which my Minister of Justice will be very happy to hear. Providing case management and psychosocial support at-risk youths and their families. These are carried out through strategic partnership with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies, community groups, private sector stakeholders, and international donor partners. Madam Speaker, as I indicated earlier, it is the policy of this administration that critical issues are addressed collaboratively with all stakeholders taking their place in the process. The Ministry of National Security is intervening in vulnerable communities to reduce gang recruitment, provide a model that can be scaled nationally by the respective portfolio ministerial agencies. In crime prevention, we must onboard all stakeholders, the residents, the ministry, departments, agencies, the private sector, and our international donor partners. I must highlight Project STAR, led by PSOJ and in association with local partner one program. PSOJ, former leader of the PSOJ, industry, which are both aligned with our collaborative approach. The social transformation have been impactful. Social transformation and have been doing impactful work within the vulnerable community in conjunction with the Ministry of National Security and the MDAs. This project is led by Mr. Keith Duncan. It's an excellent project, and it reflects the kind of collaboration we want the private sector. It's run with a lot of MOUs where the private sector brings its own energy, management skills to work with the agents of government and impact the community in an objective and fair manner. Madam Speaker, I would not, I be remiss as I come to the end not to allude to the legislative framework, because successful crime fighting depends, as we have said over and over, on 3 legs: good policing, effective social intervention, and of course, a robust legislative framework. In this government, we are developing a modern legislative framework, and we have done major work. There's more to be done, and we proceed aggressively as our caps will allow. But it should be noted, it was this government that initiated the amendment to the Anti-Gang Act, started by the previous government. But we did the amendments through a joint select committee, and they were passed and enacted. MOCA was instituted by law and regulation passed by this government. The Correction Amendment Act of 2021 was passed and enacted by this government. The Trafficking Person Amendment Act was passed and enacted. Yeah, MOCA done 2018 November. I later debate, and the regulations finished. We know we inherited the organization, but to ensure sustainability and institutionalization, we must pass legislation. And this member from South Central is fully aware of that and was very supportive. Thank you. But it was this government that did the legislation to institutionalize and create the regulations. The Firearms Prohibition, Restriction, Regulation Act 2022 has passed and enacted by this government. After many years of discussion and debate, we executed. And now, while there was even some level of debate, I think the entire cabinet now seeing the sense of that kind of legislation to deal with illegal firearms that continue to develop our country. Others that are at the stage of bill, the Immigration Restriction, Commonwealth and Aliens Act should be done in the first quarter of this year. So they're pretty advanced. They've been around for a long time. But it's a crucial piece of legislation for border control that is critical to our security. The Law Reform Zone, the Special Operation Amendment Act, see that bill is prepared. I've been taking a little time because of the capacity we have, but we're pushing it through. In addition to that, we have the amendment to the Fingerprints Act and further amendments to the process of crime to include provisions for unexplained wealth on the road and should be during the course of this fiscal year. Madam Speaker, the transnational nature of criminal activity requires an equally multi-pronged approach. For the greater part of last year, Jamaica chaired the CARICOM Council for National Security and Law Enforcement. We utilized the opportunity to influence and address regional security challenges while identifying best practices to curb criminal violence in the respective CARICOM islands. Last year, we would have noticed the uptick in incidents of criminal violence in several of the Eastern Caribbean islands, and this further consolidated the resolve of national security ministers to encourage greater intelligence sharing and analysis to protect our borders and our region from transnational criminal activities. This culminated in the recently convened CARICOM Heads of Government Symposium, in which our Prime Minister articulated forcefully his war on guns. And the entire CARICOM region came together in unison to address the horrible scourge of crime on our beautiful Caribbean islands. I'm pleased to inform you, Madam Speaker, that this year Jamaica will also host the 37th International Drug Enforcement Conference. The conference is expected to have over 400 dignitaries, high-ranking police and military delegates from over 100 countries across the world. Madam Speaker, Jamaica is the first CARICOM country to host this conference. The conference will create a multilateral forum for the international police and prosecute communities to strengthen international security relations and counter narcotics cooperation, share drug-related intelligence, and to develop operational strategies that can be used to combat transnational organized criminal organizations involving illicit drug trade, a most damaging activity and one that generates murder. It has to be dealt with. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's hosting of this conference is reflective of the resolve of the government to adopt strong measures and foster strategic partnership to combat transnational criminal activity. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I'd like to give a few examples of the increased effectiveness of the police. I cannot give you the long list, but I think it is important the country appreciate understand some of the activities, which is based not by accent, but on efficient policing, quality intelligence, and strong, efficient professionals working to disrupt and destroy the criminal actors. Since 2016, we have developed a comprehensive plan to secure Jamaica as a roadmap for required investment, technological development, institutional and legislative modernization to equip the security forces for efficient and successful law enforcement. Our police officers are engaged in combat with these criminals. We are confident they can and will win. Criminal terrorists only have to succeed once to create fear in our society. The police have to succeed every time to overcome the atmosphere of fear. The police now operate with improved intelligence and analytical capabilities, modern fit-for-purpose equipment and tools, ballistic vests, appropriate uniforms, body-worn cameras, reliable communication, and updated legislation to ensure they can win. We are seeing evidence of improved capabilities. I'll give you a few examples. On the anti-gang, we have had three major gang trials, but I'll name two. The Klansman gang trial, where 15 was convicted, 53 was apprehended. It's a new law. The police and the prosecuting officers went through a long process, a good conviction, but the other 40, we still have them on the radar, and the police is actively investigating and should be able to disrupt the gang totally very soon. Youth and Wales gang, only 9 convicted, and we have 5 cases before the court. One, the Ranko gang, is a very large trial involving a group that was heavily involved in criminal activity in this side of the island. The Kings Valley Extension gang, a gang that has been involved in numerous murders on the Westmoreland area. Members of the Umbrella gang, the Singer Nighttime gang, and the Jaggy gang, all 5 cases coming up in the court, which are demanding extra special work by the courts. In fact, the chief just indicating we should maybe get a special court for gang trials. Another 51 gangs are under constant review. I make reference to the Berylum case, which made news, because already we have, in fact, taken up 4 of some 9 vehicles involved in that robbery. I mention it more to give reassure the country. The police is acting decisively, but has the intelligence and the capital to monitor these criminals. We'll find the rest of the vehicles. Some 8 were, in fact, apprehended, and a number of them in charge. A number of other significant intelligence-led operations is of significance just to note. St. Catherine Most Wanted was killed during a confrontation with the police in North-South Highway. That case of interest because they came there, we had the knowledge to eliminate a whole family, to murder a family, and 5. The police made their presence felt. They were there quietly to protect the family. Had they seek to reach the family, would have had the intervention somewhere into the combat elsewhere. But after 3 days of seeking to get to the house and realized that the police were not just there by coincidence, they sought to return to St. Anne, were intercepted on the highway, and the main leader expired in combat. 1 firearm was recovered. Last year, a cache of 10 firearms were seized from a venue very near to the stadium. Further incidents led to the fatal shooting of one of the leaders and the recovery of a further 3 firearms. On July 19, 3 members of the Speculation Gang, a group that specializes in armed robbery in St. Elizabeth and Manchester, for several weeks were engaged. 2 were fatally shot and 2 firearms recovered. Since then, the leader has been arrested and one of his drivers shot in combat as well. 2 gang members from Montego Bay were joined to Kingston to purchase a whole over 1,000 rounds for an ongoing gang war. What they were not aware of is that we had intelligence, we intercepted with the highway, both expired and were removed from the scene in a fatal shootout. Both gangs migrated after that. And there is no more gang war in that particular era. It doesn't mean it will not recur, but what we're saying to the gangsters, we'll find them, we'll apprehend them, we lock them up, we get them. If they engage the police is entitled to defend themselves. In the process, during the course of this year, we have seized 3,385 kilograms of cocaine, one of the largest seizures in the history of the country. Again, like what happened some time back, I think, 3,385 kilograms. The rise in transshipment of cocaine is significant. It's valued over $150 million US. We have had cash seizures of 3.8 million US, 30,000 Canadian. We have major corruption and fraud cases ongoing, Seprod, Burger King, bank cases. Government, I've been told some 5 have been arrested of 6 local charge and 2 overseas, for which will be extradited home, in addition to other public sector corruption charges in the courts. Indeed, Madam Speaker, we are saying murder is horrible, but we have to fight on all fronts: corruption, fraud, and all the activities that contribute to the criminal network. Real estate forfeiture is proceeding between MOCA and the FID. Currently, we have about 1 case only where a group of some 14, an individual was sentenced to 14.5 years of imprisonment in the US. We're able to, as a result of a multi-jurisdictional investigation showing our own capacity, working with other partners. As a result, we seized 12 high-end value residential property in Jamaica and 3 businesses in this country. The FID has under its remit some $5 billion worth of real estate that is managing. We'll seek how to monetize these and get the money to the security forces. Matter of scamming, we have broken up large groups and we have 12 cases before the court currently. And as a final push, Madam Speaker, some 24 criminals have been extradited for money laundering, drug trafficking, and scamming in the last 12 months. And this year will be a larger number. In the last 5 years, we have seized 4,621 illegal firearms. That's a large number of guns that can be coming. In 2017, 4,621 guns will take off our streets. Madam Speaker, this government recognizes that crime is our citizens' greatest concern, and correctly so. It kills our people, undermines our democracy, corrupts our institution. It generates social disorder and general lawlessness. This government did not just talk. We made it the priority. We are making investment and will continue to invest. We are recruiting, we are transforming, we are modernizing, we are building. We are developing the most powerful force for good in this country, the Jamaica Conservative Force. We have expanded and strengthened the Jamaica Defense Force. We have institutionalized the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency. We have a strong financial investigation division. We have an active contraband enforcement team. Note the 92 firearms, now 96 seized at the port of Montego Bay in very recent times. We have an active PICA. They operate, Madam Speaker, as one team, prosecuting the criminal terrorists and protecting the families of this country. I repeat in closing, Madam Speaker, we recognize murder is the most emotionally traumatic and devastating criminal act. It's an egregious act. To get at it, however, we must fight on all fronts: the fraud, the corruption, the gangs, the drugs, scamming, the guns, indiscipline, and disorder. It's an all-front combat fight to ensure we can protect our citizens and reduce the murder in our society. We will have social transformation and inclusiveness too, while prosecuting the criminal terrorists and protecting the sons and daughters of this beautiful land. This Prime Minister has given the commitment, and this Minister, Madam Speaker, will carry out this mandate without fear or favor, and we will win this war. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I'm sure you'll agree that this was an outstanding performance by our Minister of National Security. I now invite you to ask the member from Kingston, Easton, and Port Royal, the leader of opposition business in the House, to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to make my contribution to this very crucial sectoral debate. I am guided by St. Paul's instructions in his letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 18. In everything, give thanks, for it is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. So I start by giving thanks to the Almighty. I give thanks to the many persons who continue to support and uphold me even after the long period of 26 years in this place. And over that time, I have sat on that side and on this side. I want to go back over that side. I want to go back over that side. There have been good times, Madam Speaker, and bad, but my enthusiasm and joy in service to the people of this country have never waned. My colleagues on both sides have been good and kind. The staff of the House and indeed the entire public sector have been gracious. And of course, you, Madam Speaker, despite our challenges from time to time, I remain your best servant inside here. And I know that we continue to have an excellent working relationship. I am sensing that the energy has increased. Yes. I thank also the leader of the opposition who continues to execute his duties with firmness and vision. To my people of East Kingston and Port Royal, leaders and constituents who have never wavered in their love, sincerity, and understanding, I thank you deeply and renew my commitment to serve with humility. I recognize the tremendous support of my councillors, Lorraine Dobson and Jackie Lewis, my constituency executive chaired by Angela Chaplin, my task force chaired by Hugh Campbell, and my professional colleagues at my law firm. People don't believe that I'm a lawyer. and we're not supposed to advertise. But there's a firm called PFP Law and Associates. It's the best little law firm in Jamaica. So I want to thank Sophia, Marjorie, Cavell, and Alia, and of course my driver and CPO. Finally, my family members who continue to love and support me unconditionally. I am totally grateful. How are they? Madam Speaker, at the outset, I will refer to this debate as crucial, even though it has become a virtual annual ritual fulfilling parliamentary requirement, but not necessarily meaningful to the daily lives of those who are elected to serve. This year, though, as we go past the midterm point of the current administration, and the Prime Minister not even looking to hear this party, as we go past the midterm point, the people again have begun to assess us, both government and opposition, and the policies and programs we are putting forward to advance their quality of life. Jamaica is becoming more and more about the effectiveness and innovativeness of what we propose and implement, and less about the partisan politics, which in recent times has been mired in showboating and arrogance. The people, I am sensing more and more, are now looking to the opposition for the way forward. Madam Speaker, those who listen to the government members' presentations yes. Madam Speaker, two persons can't stand on their feet at the same time, so one has to sit. Madam Speaker, those who listen to the government members' presentations continue to be disappointed by the braggadocio as the people, confront the reality of the lack of capacity for them in our economy and the breakdown in the human and social services and physical infrastructure. To them, at times, all seems to be falling apart under the lack of attention to the provision and expansion of quality services, while spokesmen on that side extol the virtues of balancing the books, improving the macroeconomic outturn, and trot out a recitation of praise for them from the international financial market leaders. As former Prime Minister, the most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller would say repeatedly, we must balance the books while balancing people's lives. She was right. Politics is all about the people. Their welfare must be put above everything else. And Madam Speaker, as we think today of Sister P, we think of her with love. And we pray for God's blessings on her as she continues to recover from this. And I must say, Madam Speaker, that we on this side were overwhelmed recently by the outpouring of love. And in fact, we have to salute the Prime Minister, who was first in line, the Minister of Health, and yourself. So many of you, yes, so many of you called. And we on this side, we are grateful for that, for Sister P. And Madam Speaker, as you have already welcomed so many who are here, we want to welcome all the former members of Parliament who are here. And we want to welcome also our former First Lady, Beverly Anderson Duncan Manley, who is here in the House as well. Madam Speaker, last year Jamaica entered its Diamond Jubilee quite tentatively, just emerging along with the rest of the world from the global pandemic, still with our legs wobbling somewhat, but with a common belief that we had seen the worst of COVID. And indeed, we all pray that that is so. Many perhaps may accept that the type of legacy projects that will be reflective of the Diamond Jubilee didn't happen due to its proximity to the pandemic. I think it is fair to view it from those lenses, and I'm trying to be reasonable, charitable today. But on the other hand, we must be truthful and cognizant that for many, The review of the year was one of ordinariness or somewhat uneventful, if you prefer. Madam Speaker, the above notwithstanding, I would declare throughout our 60 years, this House and those who occupied it from time to time have collectively enhanced the development of our country and people. For sure, there have been missed opportunities and bad governance, but it is also true that we have seen brilliance, and indeed, we have seen united and inspired leadership over time. The people are calling for that once more. Too many of our people, especially our young people, feel otherwise at this time. And in my conclusion, I will return to that. But in the interest of time, and as I have two portfolio ministers who are here this afternoon, I'm not so fortunate all the time to have both of them in the presence. And they're very smart because I know that when they are here, the licks might be a little bit less vibrant. But Madam Speaker, let me start with the portfolio of energy. The portfolio of energy in the last 7 years has suffered from the effects of bad management, instability, and neglect. 4 ministers, including the Prime Minister, have attended to this portfolio with little or no meaningful positive changes to show. Not much is happening, and every commitment given by the administration to the people, whether it's in relation to renewable energy, petrojam, electricity prices, and legislative reform in the electricity sector, has not been met. In fact, in some areas, we have experienced significant reversal. Madam Speaker, nowhere in the ministry is the standstill more evident than the provision of electricity services. Despite a policy objective of significantly increasing the ratio of renewable energy to 50% against fossil fuel sources in the Jamaican energy mix, very little has been done over the past 7 years to meet that objective. Of Jamaica's installed capacity of just over 1,000 megawatts of electricity that we generate, only 178 megawatts is from renewable sources, such as hydro, wind, and solar. Only 37 of that has been added in the 7 years. And that project that came on was approved by us. Yes, in 2030. All the other large renewable energy projects were procured and implemented by our administration prior to 2016. Madam Speaker, we are pleased that the current minister has seen it fit to resume the important role and function of the Energy Council, and that he was swift to commence the review of the Electricity Act when the neglect was pointed out to him. We have to give him credit, and the credit will always come first. Right, he has been responsive to requests for information and meetings. But Minister, we are sorely disappointed that after a period of rapid growth up to 2016, less than 15% of the installed capacity is from renewables. This is so, again, even after the Prime Minister set a target of achieving 50% by 2030. At the rate at which we are going, it is hardly likely we will even get to 20% by 2030. This is so, Madam Speaker, in spite of the Minister's recent presentation to the National Energy Council of the Integrated Resource Plan, number 2. And we have to move to number 2 because number 1 was stillborn. And the oft-repeated announcement that a request for proposal was just around the corner. We have not seen one single request for proposal since 2014. Madam Speaker, we recently received a presentation on IRP2, a proposal for an injection of about 800 megawatts of new renewable capacity by 2030. We haven't gotten one in 7 years. And it has now been projected that in 7 years, we are going to get about 800 megawatts. I believe, with the greatest of respect to the Minister and his team, that that's a joke, and that we are just chatting in this regard. And if the minister is going to cite again that 37 megawatts plant, I want to remind you that that came on stream in 2013. Madam Speaker, we are also happy to see the resumption of the work of the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament to review the Electricity Act. We are still shocked that the work of the committee was stalled for almost a year while the cost of electricity continues to escalate, and we are now told that the JPS is into a death spiral. As the leader of the opposition pointed out in his budget presentation, there is a stark reality facing the Jamaican people. I want to quote from his presentation, and I quote, "The upshot of the overall mismanagement of the energy sector by this government, coupled with its ill-advised foreign policy stance, is that the price of electricity to the Jamaican consumer, which was 25 cents US per kilowatt hour in 2016, is now 42 US cents per kilowatt hour. At that very high price of electricity, Jamaican consumers continue to suffer. Manufacturing and other businesses are at a competitive disadvantage versus goods produced in countries with lower energy costs. It is a bad situation for Jamaica." End of quote. I want to commend the leaders of the opposition for those observations. Madam Speaker, I also have concerns, Mr. Speaker, I also have concerns about the so-called benefits which should have been derived from the massive switch to the use of LNG as the preferred fuel. The LNG generating plants are now the highest supplier of electricity to the grid. We need to take credit for that because it does represent a dramatic transformation in the fuel sources. The question, though, Mr. Speaker, is are Jamaicans getting the financial benefit from the changeover from diesel and heavy fuel oil to LNG? I submit the answer is no. Why is it so? Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, consider it. I really do prefer, Madam Speaker. Yes, the fuel cost on our bills, just listen to this, in 2016 was US 9 cents per kilowatt hour. By the end of 2021, it got to 15 cents, a whopping increase of 66%. And those are the figures that the OUR could provide me. They don't have 2022 as yet. And I know that the price of electricity has been increasing since then. Expensive state-of-the-art infrastructure has been set up in Jamaica to produce LNG. But it seems JPS customers alone are being asked to pay for this infrastructure and no one else. What about the discussion that we had in my time of Jamaica becoming the hub for the processing of LNG for the region, given our logistics and our advantages? This throughput of LNG was contemplated to be a cost-sharing exercise to lessen the burden on the Jamaican consumers. Mr. Speaker, JPS customers alone cannot do it without electricity prices continuing to go through the roof, crippling businesses large and small, and making it unaffordable for the domestic consumer. The so-called Rate 10 customers. New Fortress must find new customers, so the payback is shared between a larger group. That is why recently, Mr. Speaker, I asked for a better burden share as some JPS customers move away from the grid and the take-or-pay arrangements become more burdensome to those who remain. That's right. If it continues on the present trajectory, JPS will be in peril, but we are going to be at greater mercy of higher prices. In fact, some people believe that we are already there. As I have told this Honorable House before, it was also never the intention of the PNP government to introduce LNG with only one provider. We believe in competition. We believe in competition. The policy, no, we're definitely not the same. The policy goal was to promulgate enabling regulations to foster transparent rules and to encourage competition. This has not happened even after 7 years. The energy situation in Jamaica is insecure, and though late, we must stop wasting time and get our act together. Nobody is waiting on us. We must inject new thinking now to attract strategic investment, as the next 2 years cannot be like the last 7. Moving away from the grid has its advantages to some, but severe disadvantages to those who remain behind. Madam, Mr. Speaker, the framework to manage electricity in Jamaica was revolutionized in 2015 when the Electricity Act was promulgated to consolidate and modernize the laws relating to the generation, transmission, distribution, supply, dispatch, and use of electricity. That was a major accomplishment. The law itself mandated a review in 5 years. That was by 2020. We are now in 2023, 3 years past the review time. Our Joint Select Committee has been sitting, and this, Mr. Speaker, is important work. But of course, I have already expressed my disappointment that between February last year and March this year, we did no work to continue this very important exercise. But Mr. Speaker, I want to get to another point, which is far more severe than just a meeting of the Joint Select Committee. What about the non-fuel charge on our bills? So we have fuel, LNG mainly, we have added some renewables. We have non-fuel. Today I'm not going to deal with the third part, which is taxation, which has escalated tremendously since 2016 and now.
Tax on the discount.
Yeah. But so let us look at the non-fuel charge. The non-fuel charge is that which comes with transmission and distribution. In 2016, it was 13 US cents per kilowatt hour. In 2021, it jumped to 16.26. And that figure is not where it has stopped. The OUR is still not yet able to say where we were in 2022, but it has continued. Mr. Speaker, apart from some glaring areas of inefficiency of the operations of the grid, which JPSCO must invest in to correct, the bulk of this increase is coming from an increase in the amount of electricity that is stolen. That is stolen. The amount of theft has risen in the last few years. And we have been told that prosperity is upon us. Let that sink in. Last year, in these same debates, after careful thinking, I put forward a plan to diminish the amount of electricity theft which is taking place, and to which all legitimate customers must pay. I had suggested then that using money from the hedge fund tax, the government could implement a large-scale project of using rooftops in various communities and other spaces to install solar panels to generate electricity for these poor communities. I had noted that with the improvement in storage, because the technology for battery storage has dramatically improved. In fact, even since last year. And that because of that, we could almost guarantee firm capacity so that when the sun is down, you can still have electricity being supplied. I followed up the proposal by tabling a private member's motion in April 27, 2002. Where are we today?
2022.
Right. 2022, April 27, 2022.
A year
ago. And it was tabled so that we could have a proper debate in this parliament, because every one of us inside here is faced with the howls and the balls of our constituents whenever they get their electricity bills. But what did my good friend say? My good friend, who has always shown respect to the ideas, he dealt with the matter in one sentence in his budget presentation last year. He said the idea is unworkable and that the ministry will come up with other solutions soon. That was the end of that.
Is that
And
bad mind? That sounds like bad mind, Larry.
I again call upon the minister to be front and center in finding a solution to the high level of electricity theft. This is one time I want to join in the call by JPS and everybody for a national solution. It will help to lower the light bills. So let us debate the proposal. Mr. Speaker, in looking beyond this government and in projecting for the future, I want to share, as I always do, some ideas as to the way forward, as to how to solve this problem. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, the JPSCO license comes to an end in 4 years' time. I don't think the government should sit and wait until that time is upon them.
No way.
I think negotiations should start now. And in those negotiations, because JPSCO wants something, the government should use its leverage to extract, even from now, certain things. For example, Mr. Speaker, we have been toiling in the committee about those companies that operate in the special economic zone. Those companies that provide services for the export market. We believe that they should not be hamstrung any longer. That they should be able to generate, they should be able to transmit and distribute to their customers in the zone their electricity.
You have to negotiate the license.
The member from Western Portland agrees with me 90% of the time. I just want to see some action.
Him can't manage it. His wife came all the action. His wife came all the action.
Mr. Speaker, we must be skillful and clear in those negotiations, Minister, which need to start now to pursue what is in the best interest of the Jamaican and our consumers. It is the right time also for discussions to commence, I believe, on the separation of the JPSCO into two arms and two cost centers. There should be a generation company and a distribution company. It makes for greater transparency. Again, in looking to the future, I want to suggest that we focus on greater technical and non-technical efficiency of the grid. We need to encourage greater access to net billing and wheeling licenses. We have not yet gotten one wheeling license out of the door since the law was passed in 2015.
Not one.
Not one. But we also need to simplify the process because this is how you can introduce competition on the distribution side of the business. Mr. Speaker, we also need to implement the first phase of the least cost resource development plan with the procurement of 200 megawatts of renewable energy. So I agree with the minister, but again, let us get it done. Mr. Speaker, in also reflecting on where we're at, I think the time has come when we consider seriously whether or not we want to be entering into 20-year private power agreement with licenses to boot with developers. I think we need to give, but there is no need to give developers, entrepreneurs, any guaranteed rate of return anymore. No. I think we need to create the environment of a truly free and fair competitive procurement and allow risk takers to invest with the confidence of banking on their technology and efficiency in making their profits. But we shouldn't be guaranteed any more rate of return. Mr. Speaker, I've heard the minister spoke about this before, And when I mentioned it first time ago in 2015, it did cause some stir. But I also believe that the technology that has been developing for mobile nuclear energy be considered to be an option as well. We also need to maximize our carbon credit earnings. Many people don't know about this. But in 2002, when we established Wigton Wind Farm,
That's right.
we were able to generate earnings by selling the carbon credits on the international market. There is a growing, Mr. Speaker, awareness of the impact of greenhouse gases and a preoccupation on how to sequester or offset our use of things that generate carbon in the atmosphere. There are myriad initiatives in this area, and I really want to plead my own interest because as an entrepreneur now, I've established a business that is seeking to be the only body with the competence to broker carbon offset certificates and to trade in carbon credits. So when you see when you see someone generating, don't begrudge that. It's hard work. Mr. Speaker, I also believe that we need to start to explore another option, using green hydrogen. Recently, I was a part of a global summit on the growing importance of hydrogen in the energy mix. And we want to implement that as soon as we change from this side to that side. Of course, we also believe that we should get into a faster track towards the electrification, full electrification of our transport sector. Mr. Speaker, I've spoke about the energy portfolio being at standstill, and that's a part of the problem that we face. Take Petrojam, for example. Yeah. In 2018, the Zaka report on the Petrojam oil refinery was commissioned and tabled in the House with much fanfare. Yet nothing has come of it in the last 5 years. Madam Speaker, I don't support all the recommendations in that report, but at least
Madam Speaker, in keeping with the tradition that members have always respected this process, I beg to move that the member's time, having been expired, be extended sufficiently for him to conclude his presentation.
Question is before us for the time to be extended for the member to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you and the House for your kindness, and I promise you, as soon as I see the energy waning, I'll stop. Mr. Speaker, Petrojam, despite issues of the past, has served this country well. We have never run out of fuel supplies, and we should continue to pay tribute to the staff of Petrojam for the work that they have done. But we must not give them basket to carry water. If decisive decisions are not taken during this fiscal year, then I fear that there will be no future for Petrojam, as other competitors with access to cheaper sources of fuel will put them out of business. We over here support competition in the market, but we have to give Petrojam a fighting chance. And the way it is projected, they will have to be shut and the refinery transformed into a terminal port for import. Another year has passed and no action. The country also needs to be updated on the status of the acquisition of Venezuela's share in the Petrojam refinery.
What the hell is going on with that?
And this is so particularly because we are sensing now an easing in the relationship between the United States and Venezuela. And in fact, some of our own countries in this region, they have begun to do trading once more with Venezuela under the Petrocaribe agreement. The matter has been protracted with payment for the shares sitting in escrow for 4 years while relations remain frosty. Jamaica must never be ungrateful to Venezuela. Because as we now celebrate improved debt to GDP ratios, we should remember that Jamaica benefited from a US $1.5 billion write-off. And I do believe that diplomatic channels can now be opened so that we are not in breach of the sanctions, but we can work with the US to achieve greater accord and at least to settle that issue of the refinery at this time. The minister will be happy that I have to move on quickly to mining. So I leave and I come to. Madam, Lord, I wish the speaker was there, but it's okay. Mr. Speaker, the mining sector needs a reset.
Yes.
It needs a reset.
Where's Mr. Green? Mr. Green.
Once a pillar of the Jamaican economy, the sector is reeling from a litany of woes, many of our own making. It is a sleeping giant which must not only be awakened, but made to answer the call. In order to achieve this reset, I'm again proposing a national consultation on the future of the mining sector, having regard to the emerging many issues, environmental issues, health issues associated with all aspects of the sector, and in fact, litigation. A consensus is necessary for the sector to realize the existing still vast potential. Yet the potential of vast earnings still, I believe, Mr. Speaker, exists, but only with greater partnership. Among the critical issues to be resolved is that of a greater certainty in relation to the earnings from the sector, bauxite levy, and royalties. We believe we should never have a regime where there is a full waiver of the bauxite levy. It should never occur again. Additionally, apart from those existing contracts and licenses, and there are existing arrangements which must be honored, we also believe that no new arrangement should be engaged for the export of raw bauxite. That we should work towards achieving greater value added right here in Jamaica. And so I want to urge that we put the geologists at JBI to work at exploration of new areas for bauxite reserves outside of the environmentally sensitive ones. The truth is, the metal aluminum, being a sturdy, renewable, versatile, and relatively inexpensive metal, will remain in high use for the foreseeable future. Indeed, those of us who love the convenience of travel, whether by car or plane, the ease with which we continue to communicate, these phones and stuff, we want to continue to communicate and to invest in technologies that are beneficial to the environment. Must emphasize the importance of aluminum. And of course, if you are viewing the importance of aluminum, you have to view the importance of bauxite and aluminum.
That's right.
So we have to contribute to continue to the world supply of bauxite and aluminum. And I'm still hoping we will still be able to do some smelting right here in Jamaica. That has been our vision. And it can still happen. It can still happen. I know that there is mirth from time to time when I come up with these ideas. But trust me, it is not far-fetched. And with the right energy mix, we can do our own smelting right here in Jamaica. So rather than killing bauxite, let us negotiate a path with all stakeholders so that Jamaica can maximize its earnings. Let us build back international cooperation. There was a time in the 70s when we had the International Bauxite Association. That was our counterpart to OPEC.
Michael Manley.
By the late Michael Manley. And we were able to use that association to get uniformity globally on those interests that were in favor of our local production. And I urge that we get back to that.
Visionary leadership.
It was.
I'm so happy to see the real speaker back in her chair. No disrespect to
One day, Bush.
Madam Speaker, the national consultation for the industry being proposed, and again, it is looking beyond this government. It is looking to a time when we will be in that state. We have to go back to the experiment that we did with the manufacturing of rare earth elements and other metals. And later on, I'll come back to that. But there's also a proposal that the government works with GISCO, Minister, to encourage them to develop Port Kaiser, because we speak about logistics hub and we talk about Vernon Field, but at Port Kaiser, we have significant infrastructure to do transshipment
And the rail connection.
and of course, the rail connectivity. So that's an idea. We also need to go back to looking at the real potential for limestone. Jamaica is 90% limestone, and we have not begun to look at the value-added system there. We also need to look at a massive reforestation of mined-out bauxite land.
Here.
I think those are some of the issues that we need to focus on. Madam Speaker, as I now focus on the specific elements of the bauxite industry, I wish to start with the Jamalco plant, where the government of Jamaica is in partnership through CAP with Noble. Madam Speaker, very disturbing news emerged today. When I was actually looking at the website of Century Aluminum Company, I heard that the news has been broken since.
Yeah.
But that website revealed that Century has just acquired 55% stake in Jamalco. Remember, it's a plant that the government of Jamaica, through CAP, Clarendon Aluminum Partners, owns 45%, and Noble 55%. Today, it was announced that Century has taken over Noble's share for $1.
$1.
$1. Doesn't matter if it's US or Jamaica. Really. It's $1. And I'm glad to hear. I am glad to hear.
It's a damage from the fire.
I am glad to hear a former minister speaking about liabilities. Madam Speaker, it is concerning as it is my understanding that the GOJ, as announced by the Minister of Finance, had settled all the outstanding debts to Noble.
Yes.
And is in good standing with his other financial responsibilities and commitments. I wish to call upon the Minister of Finance, because this matter is not with the Minister of Mining.
Yeah.
Jamalco was transferred to the Minister of Finance some time ago. And the Minister of Finance needs to state unequivocally whether the debts have been settled, how much, and when. Jamalco was recently shuttered, Madam Speaker, because of a fire in August 2021, which rendered the operations unviable. The matters arising from the fire, including repair and reopening of the refinery, settlement of insurance claims, the use of the proceeds, and the role of CAP in these processes, have not been transparent. Madam Speaker, we were told by the previous minister, who is not listening to me, who was responsible for CAP,
He's listening to a mole.
that the plant at the time of the fire was producing 3,170 tons of aluminum per day. Losses were estimated at 500,000 US per day.
That's the problem.
The company, we were told by the previous minister, had property and plant insurance valued at 250 million US dollars to address incidents such as the fire. Madam Speaker, I asked some questions of the Minister of Finance in January of this year. These were not answered. They fell off the question paper and were retabled to be answered on April 18,
He's hiding.
2023.
Hiding.
These questions remain outstanding, Madam Speaker, and I wish to suggest to the Minister that in our low-trust environment, these questions be answered immediately.
Yes.
Now that the sale of Noble's assets in Jamaica to Century has been announced, will the government state whether it has given its formal approval, which is a prerequisite? It must come from the government before any such announcement can be made. Will the minister tell the country, therefore, what is the value of CAP? If Noble at 55% is $1, what is the value of the government's stake in the company? Also, will the government finally accept the opposition position to shift? And Madam Speaker, we have raised this issue before. Will the government finally accept the opposition position to shift the revenue regime from a direct taxation on profits and instead revert to the bauxite levy regime? And so if you are negotiating to approve the sale, that should be a leverage that you inject to ensure that the country gets better returns on this extractive sector. We can't put at the bauxite in the ground.
That's the problem.
Our people need to get money for it.
Absolutely.
$1.
Madam Speaker, I will not tarry too long on the rare earth elements proposal. It's over 10 years now that we were able to successfully develop a project where we recognize the 100 million tons of red mud, of waste, of the residue. And we, in collaboration with a Japanese firm, we meaning Jamaica Bauxite Institute, were able to extract some of those 17 rare earth elements that are so useful in some of the processes that we are so preoccupied with today. Your cell phone, your batteries, all of those things associated with making the environment better. We prove that those rare earth elements are in the residue, but it takes a little bit of, no, I was gonna say exuberance, but but it takes energy to get some of these things moving.
That's right.
And sitting down and hoping and praying won't work. You have to go out there and take some risk.
The balloon a leak.
And I'm so happy, Madam Speaker, that recently a firm called Geophysics Jamaica recently announced that it was moving towards new testing of the feasibility of extracting rare earth elements. The company believes it has now technology that is more advanced than the process that we had done 10 years ago. And as the Gleaner puts it in a recent editorial, the effort is worthy of celebration and its success could have substantial economic value. Madam Speaker, I see the leader of government business eyeing me and the time. There is so much to say, but we'll come back to it another time. But let me conclude, Madam Speaker. I began by referring to the 2023-24 financial year as critical. Emerging from 2 years of the worst pandemic requires innovation and risk-taking at levels not seen in recent years. Recouping 2 years of lost national production and growth is not easy. True, it is that some areas, such as tourism, are back to or even surpass pre-pandemic levels. But it will require more, as the pandemic itself has brought greater demands and inflation, which has threatened the quality of life of our citizens. What COVID has done is to further highlight and actually worsen some of the deep structural inadequacies in our economy. One of the most illustrious occupants of this house said the following in his last address to his party conference some time ago. I say, and I'm quoting, The mission of my generation was to win self-government for Jamaica, to win political power for the black masses of my people from which I spring. I am proud, he continued, to stand here and say to you who fought that fight with me, say it with gladness and pride, mission accomplished for my generation.
NW.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, he continued, and what is the mission of the next generation? It is the restructuring of the social and economic society and life of Jamaica. That was 1969, 54 years ago. Madam Speaker, there have been a few generations since 1969, and we are yet to achieve that mission. We owe it to our people to innovate and to forge new and better ways, sunny ways of developing, delivering on new demands for paying higher wages through higher tech jobs that will utilize higher skills. We must focus like never before on creating greater wealth in our country. Such wealth, when generated, shouldn't be about money trickling down to the poor, but by deliberate policy, see greater equity in how it is distributed. We must move our country where the focus is shifted to creating a truly middle-class society and existence. That ought to be our mission. An excellent opportunity is now provided as we try to chart a new constitution. Perhaps we could chart a new Jamaica, if you will. We need to create a republic that designs a social and economic society and life in Jamaica that places those on the periphery or on the fringes squarely at the center. That's how to create a truly middle-class society. Madam Speaker, a republic that honors the basic desire of respect that each Jamaican treasures, with the understanding that respectfulness is the automatic responsibility of all to each. A republic in which the highest traditions of justice are matched with the basic tenets of fairness. A republic in which the I, the me, and the my are secondary to the we, the ours, and the us. A republic which is underpinned by a confidence that government serves the better interests of every Jamaican and not the unending requests of the connected, the favored, and the few.
That's right.
Colleagues in this honorable house, if we can show through the approach we take to the new design of our constitution and the republic that will define us and our culture and that would be of our own creation, that we are fighting together for our people, especially our young people, and not against them or for ourselves. If we do that, then I believe we can sing along and celebrate the lyrics of the song, rather than being haunted by them when they are trumpeted in our churches on Sundays or Saturdays. What are those lyrics? Those lyrics. It goes like this, and I won't sing. We are a chosen generation. We have been called forth to show his excellence.
That's right.
Hey, all I require for life, God has given me, and I know who I am.
That's right.
In a sense, Madam Speaker, our people, especially our youth, are trying to know who they are within the national framework of our politics, our justice system, and our governance structure. The legislators who were before us, the independence generation, they set the bar high for us. We were the inheritors of their successful fight against slavery, colonialism, and imperialism. But in the period between then and now, we have not kept pace with their expectations. I believe it is within our collective energies to correct that lapse. Time will be unkind to us if we don't, and perhaps even more ominously, our future generations will be explicit in calling us not blessed, but cursed. No one here inside here can know for sure how much longer we will occupy these vaunted positions. Others have come and gone. We are here and we don't know how long we're going to be here. So let us now unite around a legacy that we will energize the imminent republic with collectivism, notwithstanding our competitive politics. But that competitiveness will be subdued as we seek to become the first generation of legislators to occupy the parliament of the new Jamaica. A republic we will trust, a republic we will protect, and a republic that we will love. It was William Shakespeare. It was William Shakespeare who said, "We know what we are, but I know not what we may be." I suggest we can know what we may be if we are prepared to take risks to realize our full potential as a people. I end where I started. St. Paul's letter to the Romans is appropriate. Do not be comforted to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. God bless Jamaica. Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thought the members on that side would spend time congratulating the member for an excellent presentation. And I think, Madam Speaker, we have been treated to two excellent presentations today. And I beg to move that you revert to the standing orders and to seek recommittal of all the items prior to the public business. May I please advance? Madam Speaker, just before we do that, Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the sectoral debate be suspended until tomorrow at 2 p.m., when it is expected that the Speaker will be the Minister of Labor and Social Security and the member from, yes? You're not speaking? Oh. Right, okay, and the member from St. Andrew Southwest and spokesperson on Labor and Social Security. Well, tomorrow is a Labor and Security day, I tell you. Both us, Minister and opposition spokesperson. May it please the Madam Speaker.
Members, there are two questions before the House. One, that the sectoral debate be suspended. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. And the second question before the House is that we revert to the items on the agenda, beginning with announcements. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
So, Madam Speaker.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Announcements. Bills brought from the Senate.
The following is a message from the President of the Senate. To the Honorable House of Representatives, I have the honor to advise the Honorable House of Representatives that on the 21st day of April 2023, a bill entitled An Act to Establish a Body to be called the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority to regulate the processes and practices connected with the manufacture, production, processing, and treatment of commodities for which a compulsory standard specification or a technical regulation has been declared, and for connected matters, was passed in the Senate. Signed, Thomas Tavares Finson, OJCD KCJP, President of the Senate.
Petitions.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I signify the willingness to accept the bill.
A bill shortly entitled the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority Act 2023, read a first time.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice for a second reading of the bill.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to sittings of the House, motions for leave to introduce bills, presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. House Leader, we're back to.
Madam Speaker, today, I think the world, and certainly Jamaica, pause in a deep moment of reverent silence, but also quiet thankfulness to the divine for having given us one of the greatest sons that cosmic earth has seen. Today we pause to also reflect on our own mortality as we celebrate with ourselves 96 good years of one of the finest sons that this country has produced, the Honorable Harry Belafonte. Madam Speaker, it isn't given to me to make that presentation on behalf of this Honorable House today, but certainly the Minister with responsibility for culture, gender affairs, and sports, who is not only familiar with the activities of this venerable son of Jamaica, but is also well positioned to offer on our behalf, not just to his family and to his friends and to the world that celebrates him, the deepest condolences, the love and the admiration that we have for this great son of ours. And so, Madam Speaker, it gives me great honor to convey to this House through the Minister our deepest and warmest emotions. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, House Leader. It is truly a sad day, and I rise to make a statement in recognizing the important role that the Honorable Harold Belafonte Jr., member of the Order of Merit, has played in promoting Jamaica. The Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, will be making a contribution at this time. But before the Prime Minister makes his presentation, I just want to say that this morning, when we received the sad news of Belafonte's passing in New York at the age of 96, although he has been ill for some time, we were still not prepared to hear of his passing. He lived a long and impactful life, and it's difficult to sum up his importance in a sentence or two. But for me, Harry Belafonte was a voice, a face, and an inspiration for Black people everywhere. In fact, for people of all races. He was an important promoter of Jamaican folk music. We all remember Deo, Jamaica Farewell, and other songs. He ignited a craze for Caribbean music in the United States, where his album Calypso featured Deo and Jamaica Farewell, and that album topped the Billboard chart in 1956 and remained at the top for 31 weeks. Calypso was said to be the first album by a single artist to sell more than 1 million copies. Belafonte used Jamaican folk music to become the biggest star in music at one point. But he also used that stardom to promote Destination Jamaica. Of course, the Minister of Tourism is enjoying what has come out of a Belafonte promoting our island in the sun. I've always been impressed at how much Harry Belafonte was proud of his Jamaican heritage and connection to our country. He was born Harold George Belafonte Jr. on March 1, 1927, in Harlem, New York. Belafonte was the original family name until his father changed it to Belafonte. His father, who hailed from Martinique, had Jamaican roots, and his mother, Melvine, was born in Jamaica in the tiny rural village of Abuka in the parish of St. Anne. She moved back to Jamaica in 1936 with Harry and his younger brother, but soon returned to America. As you know, Jamaican mothers, they go back to try and make ends meet and, prepare for the family. And she left the boys to be looked after by relatives and to immerse them in the Jamaican culture. They rejoined her in New York in 1940. Harry Belafonte said his time growing up in Abuka shaped his life. His Jamaican roots shaped the kind of music he produced. While others were mimicking Europe, Harry Belafonte was producing that unmistakably Jamaican and Caribbean sound. He also became one of the first Black actors to achieve success in Hollywood as a leading man. His credits include the films Bright Road, alongside Dorothy Dandridge, The World, The Flesh and the Devil, Porgy and Bess, as well as Island in the Sun, the 1957 movie in which there was a suggestion of a romance between his character and a white woman played by Joan Fontaine. That caused outrage, Madam Speaker, but was an example of Harry Belafonte breaking barriers. He was very careful about the roles he played, preferring not to appear in films rather than to play what he called Uncle Tom roles. Today, we celebrate his artistic achievements and also pay tribute to his social activism, which was his priority throughout his life. In fact, I just came off the phone speaking to someone close to the family in New York, and that person said that they were just speaking with Andrew Young, and Andrew said more than anything else, he remembers Belafonte assisting him in entering politics. While serving in the US Navy, Black shipmates introduced him to the works of W.E.B. Du Bois and other African American writers. That was a turning point for Harry Belafonte. He began to study Black history and eventually worked alongside the great civil rights leader, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Harry Belafonte lent his voice, his face, and his organizing ability to the fight against racism, the fight against discrimination, the fight against political oppression, the fight against violence and poverty, not only in the United States. He was credited with helping to organize the USA for Africa project, out of which came the all-star recording, We Are the World, in 1985 that raised money to fight famine in Africa. Harry Belafonte's humanitarian work represents his most lasting and impactful legacy. He was selflessly used. He has selflessly used his connections to mobilize and raise money for a number of causes across the world. Son of a Jamaican woman, Madam Speaker, a Jamaican woman of rural origins, was widely regarded as a creative genius. He promoted our folk music and achieved global acclaim, which he used to enhance Jamaica's global recognition as a tourist destination. In recognition of his contribution, the government of Jamaica conferred upon him the Order of Merit. So, Madam Speaker, Harry Belafonte used to travel to Jamaica every year to reconnect and to be here for his birthday on March 1 as the guest of Chris Blackwell, but had been unable to visit since he was given the Order of Merit. The COVID pandemic also caused us to put off plans that the Prime Minister will indicate today that was approved by Cabinet. We remain committed to honoring Harry Belafonte in this way for his contribution to Jamaica. I ask the host to join me in offering condolences to his widow Pamela, his children, his grandchildren, and friends. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yeah. Madam Speaker, I thank the Minister for her presentation, which has outlined some of the highlights of the life and contribution of a very great man, Harry Belafonte. All of us in this house would have grown up hearing, seeing, and admiring this titan who made us so proud because of the fact that not only was he of Jamaican descent, but he embraced his Jamaicanness with immense pride. And indeed, he drew strength from the folk culture, and I dare say the political spirit that was flowing through Jamaica, with which he connected in a very real way in the height of his activism. He was a leading campaigner in the fight against apartheid. And such was his standing in the global space as an immense talent, both in music and we've heard in film, that his voice was one of tremendous influence. You know, when somebody can claim that as a musical artist, their album was the first in the world, in the history of the world, to sell 1 million copies, that is a phenomenal fact. And quite frankly, the fact that that album, which I think was entitled Calypso, was largely drew on the Jamaican folk music and Caribbean rhythms, was all the more remarkable because it took our music and our culture to a heights which had not previously been recognized at that level. So that achievement was not just his achievement, but was our achievement. You know, the songs on that album and others that he released in his musical career, the hit tunes, remain to this day household favorites. Deo, Island in the Sun, or Jamaica Farewell, whatever, and so many others. And he had an absolutely magnetic voice. And his look, his image, made his entry into the film industry as a superstar a natural progression in his career. And we have heard of some of the films that he starred in. I remember one, I think it was Carmen Jones is the name of it. There's a wonderful rendition of the tune Stormy Weather in that, I believe. A song made famous by one of the great female vocalists of that era, Billie Holiday. But in that film, he starred as the lead male, and it was an absolutely tremendous performance. So his talent was really prodigious, and I think you'd have to say the range of his achievements makes him a unique phenomenon in the world. I can't think of anyone else offhand who you could say was a superstar in music, in film, and in global political activism. On our side, his passing, even after 96 years, is a very sad occasion. He was a great friend of Prime Minister Michael Manley, and his association with the People's National Party was always one of real cordiality, and we regarded him as an important friend of ours. But more than anything else, his legacy is one that the whole of Jamaica will benefit from for generations to come. He will continue his catalog in music, and I dare say in film as well, will endure through the ages. And I'm glad the PM is going to speak. I expect to hear some appropriate announcements coming from him as to how he will be honoring, or we will be honoring, this very, very great man, this son of Jamaica, you know, and his own antecedents actually are kind of typical of Jamaica, you know. His mother was the child of an Afro-Jamaican father and a Scottish-Jamaican mother. His father was a child of a Black American mother and a Dutch Jewish father of Sephardic Jewish descent. It sounds familiar to us. Harry Belafonte, may your soul rest in peace. You have served well. You have achieved true greatness. We are all proud of you, and we will forever be in your debt. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, at the closing of the pandemic, myself and the Minister of Gender, Entertainment, culture and sports, we were in New York for the celebratory activities for Jamaica 60. And at that time, we decided that we would reach out to Harry Belafonte and his family to present to him the Order of Merit, which we had awarded him, but he could not have traveled to Jamaica to personally receive it. We spoke several times on the phone trying to coordinate the visit. At that time, we had to take extra precaution given the pandemic and his age. And so we had to be very careful. Circumstances just did not align for me to be able to present him with the physical award. We deferred that in the hope that at some point he would have been able to come to Jamaica and receive it. Unfortunately, that will not happen now. Madam Speaker, I had the opportunity to meet him personally many years ago when he performed at what would have been the precursor to Jazz Festival in Horace, and I was awestruck to have personally met him. I probably spent mere minutes with him, but his personality was such that when you're standing in the presence of greatness, you can only be awed. Madam Speaker, the younger folks among us may wonder, why is Harry Belafonte deserving of our parliamentary time in tribute? The minister and the leader of the opposition would have given a good synopsis of his biography. I would want to build upon what they have said, Madam Speaker. What Jamaica now enjoys, which we wrap in the phrase brand Jamaica, really started with people like Harry Belafonte, Miss Lou, Marcus Garvey, Bob Marley. Claude McKay. My boy Lollipop, Millie Small, Jimmy Cliff. Madam Speaker, what our music industry and our creative industry benefits from today, they were the pioneers. They were the pioneers. And Harry Belafonte was more than just a musical pioneer or a cultural pioneer, a folk pioneer. But we should bear in mind as well that he was breaking down barriers at a time when the society in which he lived still had laws that segregated people by race. So for him to have the biggest selling album at the time, to become the first Black American to win an Emmy, well, the first Black person to win an Emmy, to star in, to play lead roles in box office movies, he would have broken down barriers which we now walk over without recognition. Madam Speaker, his work with the civil rights movement must also be recalled here in the Parliament. It is written in his biography that he was very good friends with Martin Luther King. And he supported the civil rights movement. He was also a great philanthropist. Madam Speaker, the government of Jamaica considered how we should recognize this icon. And we concluded that we would name a highway in his honor. Madam Speaker, we approved the naming of a segment of the North Coast Highway from Priory to Salem in St. Anne in honor of Harry Belafonte. And that segment would be renamed the Harry Belafonte Highway. We chose that segment of highway because it passed through St. Anne in proximity to his place of birth and where he lived, where he grew up. Madam Speaker, the intention still exists. As we would have declared in this House, there are plans to upgrade the highway, and there might even be a realignment. So, Madam Speaker, we would hold plans a little bit until we have finalized exactly what will happen to that stretch. But, Madam Speaker, we also discussed another plan, but it was not captured in the cabinet decision, which was to build, and the plan is still under consideration, which is to build a state-of-the-art performing arts center in St. James that would be named in his honor. We have tasked the Minister of Tourism to identify lands. We thought we had a good, you found it now? So you have found the land now. Well, that is good to know. So Madam Speaker, we will do right by Harry Belafonte in recognizing his work and contribution to building Jamaica. He is, Madam Speaker, one of my favorites. And I'm certain that all Jamaicans, the album Calypso, Jamaica Farewell, all the other songs that he has done, but the one that I like the best, and I know people might say, why would he like that one? It's just a catchy song, Matilda. No, not no. But, Madam Speaker, you could listen to his albums and they would just carry off in a serenade, relaxing, uplifting. And I think that he fought the system, he resisted oppression, and he demonstrated how that could be done with grace and dignity and pride and knowledge and intelligence. And I believe, Madam Speaker, that today the need to resist the system, to fight oppression still exists, but we can take a page out of the life of Harry Belafonte in how he did it and tore down barriers while uplifting his people. I know that he is in a good place, that his Maker is smiling at him for a life well lived. May his soul rest in peace. Madam Speaker, whilst I have the attention of the Parliament and Jamaicans listening, Jamaica lost another son of note, Justice Lensley Wolfe, who was Chief Justice of Jamaica, I believe from 1996 to 2007. Yes, a St. Jago past student. Madam Speaker, my interaction with Justice Wolfe I could consider it partially responsible for me standing here today, because upon my first election, a new law came into effect, and that law saw to the voiding of elections. And my election, unfortunately, was the test case for the law. And on the first instance, yes, on the first instance, the seat was voided, and we went to appeal, and we eventually won. So, Madam Speaker, I think that Justice Wolfe served with great honor and dignity. Madam Speaker, it is important that we recognize those jurists who have served, particularly at the level of Chief Justice, and would have contributed to the building of our justice system. And therefore, Madam Speaker, he deserves the honor and acknowledgement of the Parliament in his passing. We send condolences to his family and to the legal fraternity and the judicial fraternity on his passing. May light perpetual shine on his soul. May he rest in peace.
Sabotage. If I may be permitted to add a few words, since we have segued into giving some tributes to former Chief Justice Lensley Wolfe. Justice Lensley Wolfe was a very serious man. Members of the legal profession who practiced in the era when he was in the courts can tell you that he didn't brook any kind of misbehavior, slackness, or time wasting in his court. He had a unique way of expressing himself. And I think many counsel lived in trepidation that they might fall foul of the wolf when he was in court if they were not prepared and ready to proceed with their matters or were otherwise wasting the time of the court. He was a fearless justice. He was a man who had high standards of behavior. He was a believer in the project of nation building and played his role as a judge in support of the exigencies of nation building, whether it be ensuring that matters that needed to be addressed promptly, because they were of national importance, were dealt with promptly, even if it meant he had to hear them himself as Chief Justice. He didn't shirk from that. And he ensured that things that needed to be dealt with quickly were dealt with quickly. So his role and his legacy in the annals of Jamaican jurists is assured. Beyond his role as a judge, he also chaired important commissions reviewing the criminal justice system and the problems with crime and violence in the country. The Wolfe Report was an important document in relation to how we should deal with the problem that we have which we still haven't managed to come to terms with as a nation, of the high levels of violent crime. But the prescriptions in it are timeless and relevant even today. To his family, one of his daughters is a Supreme Court judge, and one of his daughters was, when I was doing a master's degree in England, she was in the circle of friends that I was moving in at the time. So I want to express my condolences to her and to the family. Jamaica has lost a great son of the soil in his lordship, Lensley Wolf. May his soul rest in peace and light perpetually shine upon him.
Madam Speaker, permit me also to add my words of condolence to the family of the late Honorable Justice Lensley Wolf, who served as Chief Justice of Jamaica between 1996 and 2007. Madam Speaker, firstly, let me say condolence to his family, his wife Audrey and his children. And if you would permit me to also express condolence in the name of my husband, Justice Ian Fort, who worked very closely with Justice Wolf. In fact, when Justice Wolf served as Chief Justice, my husband served as President of the Court of Appeal. Madam Speaker, it was Justice Wolf who tapped me and my colleagues at the public bar and invited us to the judiciary at the parish court level, then resident magistrates court. He was bold in breaking the tradition of appointment to the then resident magistrates court, now parish court. And I recall clearly, Madam Speaker, when he called me and other colleagues in the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. His words were that we were starring the show in the court, in the trial courts and in the appellate court. And he felt as Chief Justice that we could make a contribution to the bench. And that resulted in myself and others who include Justice Marva McIntosh, Marva MacDonald Bishop, now on the Court of Appeal, Justice Carol Edwards, also on the Court of Appeal, and myself being appointed as resident magistrates on the recommendation of Justice Wolf. Madam Speaker, I worked very closely with him in my own role as president of the Association of Resident Magistrates, and also when the government of the day embarked on the Jamaica Justice Sector Reform Program. These stories are legendary, legendary. It is true, as the leader of the opposition said, many people feared him. He had a particular persona, and so people would say wolf in name and nature, to be feared. But more than anything, what I treasured about his time at the helm of the judiciary was his understanding of government and ensuring that in adjudicating on cases, government was not disabled, as it were. And his approach also resulted in many stories being told. But he had a unique perspective on justice and what was required in the running of a country. And Madam Speaker, he was very sensitive to the cries of the people, sensitive around issues of delay, about how they were treated by the judges. And he did all he could to encourage us at all times to ensure that the people felt heard in courts, and that we could explain the decisions we took, especially those of us who were young and who were appointed as judges in the minimum qualifying time. So today, as we pay tribute to Harry Belafonte and also to Justice Wolf, I think we should remember that we are sojourners. We're passing through. And we will step through the door of death. And those who are left behind will remember us. And it is how we interacted with them that will make a difference. I remember Justice Wolf saying to us that you will be at the height of your career and people will cater to you. But remember, the day will come when you will retire and others will step in. So be careful how you treat people. And I think that's a lesson for all of us to learn. All of us, all of us. It is also said that it is on the wings of death that the soul takes its flight into eternity. And so he has flown. I hope his soul is resting in peace, and that the pain of his passing will be lessened by the beautiful memories that his colleagues and his family have of their time with him. May his soul rest in peace.
Members of the House, I too join as a speaker in taking note of the passing of two great Jamaican men. I never met Harry Belafonte. I can't say I knew of our Chief Justice, Leslie Wood. I don't recall whether I actually met him personally, but I can tell you as a young attorney, I felt who indeed the gentleman was. And true, the comments that were made about him this evening is true. He was bold, he was fearless, and he was fair. And he was a human being that believed in the rights that each of us had. I watched him as a young attorney come several times, time after time. He stood outside and waited for his name to be called because he had gotten a traffic ticket which he thought was wrongly given. And every time they put it off, he returned the next day until his matter was dealt with. And I remember, as I said, I never worked closely with him. I don't know him personally, but I remember as a young attorney, very young, appearing before a senior resident magistrate who operated in a manner that I just thought I couldn't get over it. And I walked from court, I asked for his number and I called him, and to my absolute surprise, the secretary said, hold for him. And he came on the phone and I told him what had happened, and true to form, he said, we will deal with the matter right away. And by the next day, he set up a mediation session, sent a senior judge of the Supreme Court down to Montego Bay to meet with myself and the RM. He believed, obviously, in treating things speedily, not making them just fester, and he believed in just being straightforward. You had no doubt about how he felt, whether you knew him personally or not. And so I too want to join with everyone in paying my condolence, sending condolence to his family, and particularly to his daughter, who now sits on the Supreme Court bench, Justice Simone Wolf-Rees. Truly, we have lost two giants in our country. Harry Belafonte of years ago, and Leslie Wolf, who I think of as more recent, and two people who have contributed greatly to the society and to the country who we are. So, Madam Clerk, I would ask that the courtesies be extended to their families and that we stand and observe a minute's silence in recognition of the passing of both gentlemen. Oh. May their souls rest in peace and light perpetual ever shine upon them.
Madam Speaker, it is not intended to do any further business today. I therefore beg to move that the House be adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, April 26th at 2 p.m. in the George William Gordon House. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question before the House is that we do adjourn until tomorrow, Wednesday, the 26th at 2 p.m. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This House is now adjourned.